What up? What's up, kids?
Atheist.
Atheist. What's up, kids? I'm going to share this. Not share. I want to see my life. I must be this. Change my mind. Try to find my. Why can I share this? How do I share this? I'm too old for this. You're the first one here, my friend. What's going on, dude? Have a good night. I am an unk, man. I'm old, bro. TikTok. My daughter messed with my. You can't sleep. It's only. Where do you live? It's only 9 o'clock where I live. Oh, you're in the UK? Dang, what time is it there? It's probably like real late, like 3, 4 in the morning. Have you watched my lives this late? It's 3 a.m. Dude, that's way early. It's way late. You're wild. Do you watch my lives usually? Or are you just like hanging out? Love, I'm kind. It's kind of interesting. TikTok will give you a lot of data. Yes, bro. I look you watch your lives. Nice, man. I appreciate it, bro. Are you a Christian? Or you just enjoy watching me look like an idiot all the time? I watch your lives so that I can't fall asleep. Do I put you to sleep? It's totally fair if it does. Gnostic Christian. I guess I probably, depending on how you define that, I probably would have to agree with you because, like, I'm a Christian. Well, you come up here, banded up, talk to me. Let's see. I like to. Consciousness, contingency. New Testament. Where's the request button? I should be on the bottom. Should be a request. It should be a request button at the bottom there. There's no request button. Well, let's just do this. I'll invite you to come on. Kendrick. I just sent you an invite. Can anybody who's on here tell me if the request button looks like it's working? Because he's saying there isn't a request button. There should be. I just sent you an invite too. There we go. And I have water all over my shirt because I'm dumb. I can't talk.
I just came up to make sure that it worked.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It does work.
Yeah, God bless.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. What's up, Banana Doug? You're up.
Oh, okay. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm upright. I'm breathing. I can't complain too much.
Facts. So yeah, you said you disagree. You're welcome to kind of hit me with what you disagree with.
So the reason that it's not the most rational position is because the Bible contradicts itself. in a number of different places. One of the main places I like to try to point people is John 3:16. You know what that is, right? Everybody knows who that is.
I've heard that one.
Okay. And then do you know what John 3:13 is?
You have to tell me that one. I'll look it
Okay.
up.
So the premise of John 3:13 is nobody has gone into heaven before the Son of God has come from heaven. So what that translates to is nobody before Jesus, who is the Son of God, has gone into heaven before Jesus came down. So that means Adam didn't go up, the first creation. That means Moses didn't go up, the person who wrote Genesis through the Word of God. That means David, one of his prized pupils, didn't go up. And that means that Job, the person that the devil quite literally took everything from him except his life, and he still stayed lower to God, didn't get to go up.
Okay. So you're saying John 3:13, no one has ascended into heaven except he who had descended from heaven, the Son of Man.
Correct.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life.
Right, that's John 3:16. And then John 3:13 is the one you just listed, correct?
Sure. So I don't get the confusion. I don't get why that would make me leave Christianity or think Christianity is not.
Well, so those two things cannot be true.
Oh, okay. You're talking about. All I know is I don't know my Old Testament super well. I know Elijah went up into heaven. But the Jews thought they weren't going to get resurrected till the end time.
So the issue that means that John 3:13 is not accurate. Because if Elijah went up to heaven, Elijah was before Jesus coming down, because Elijah was in the Old Testament, Jesus was in the New one. So that means that John 3:13 can't be true. And if the entire Bible has to be true because it's the Word of God.
See, I'm going to push you back on that one.
Okay.
I think you could easily rationally be a Christian and not think that, and not have the inerrancy of Scripture be the benchmark. Like I could just say these are fallible men that wrote down mostly accurate accounts of what they saw or oral traditions they got, and still land on Christianity quite solidly. I don't know if that's even really in a contradiction. I'm sure that like there's some people that have workarounds on harmonizing this, Elijah and whatnot. But like, I think when Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, I think he's pretty clear what he's trying to say. I just don't. I just like what. So like, let's just pretend that you're right. Right. Does it mean that Jesus didn't rise from the dead?
So that brings up the medical thing. Can we both agree that medicine wasn't as potent and as advanced in the Middle East back in ye olde Bible times as it is, say, now?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. So with that normancy, it's very much possible that Jesus could have, quote, died. Could have, because it wasn't in his wrist, it was into his hands. So if you get a nail through your hand, you're not going to necessarily bleed out from that.
Yeah, that's a tough claim. You're trying to say that Jesus was not executed, was placed into a tomb, and then somehow convinced all the disciples that he was literally the Son of Man and resurrected, when mostly he probably wouldn't be able to breathe or walk or talk, or he would be someone they would feel really sorry for, not this glorified, resurrected body. And also, I think the real issue with that is if you look at what the Romans did, they knew how to crucify people. They would break their legs if they were on the cross too long. Usually it would take about 2 to 3 days. If the Roman guard did not actually go through the execution, they could get executed. So the Romans were really good at making sure people were unalive. Jesus got whipped not only by the Sanhedrin, but also by the Romans. And all the Gospels say he unalives pretty quickly. So they didn't know bone on his body had to be broken. So I think it's safe to say he was actually unalived. His heart stopped.
So if your purpose is to unalive someone, and you do what has worked dozens, if not hundreds of times, there's no accurate number to say how many people that were crucified by the Romans. So let's just go 100 for the sake of argument here.
It's probably thousands, I'd imagine.
Most likely thousands, I'll agree. You do this thousands of times and the person's head drops down because the human body can only take so much pain before they pass out from it. And so I'm saying that absolutely could have happened. He could have passed out from the pain.
Well, the issue you have is in John's account, the spear goes through his side and blood and water flow out. And you were right. This is a good example. They did not have the medical knowledge to know what the heck was going on. Right. Actually, the early church fathers were thinking John just made it up because they never really heard about this. And then it turns out that actually that is a medical condition. I can't remember the name of it. That's a medical condition that Jesus had gone through where I can't remember exactly the process, but he had definitely had unalived. Like he was dead. So that's one of the more certain facts that Jesus actually died by crucifixion.
And then the other issue I have with that is he didn't necessarily go to hundreds of people. He was he reemerged to 12 people?
Well, the Creed in 1 Corinthians, you have a lot more people than that. You've got you got the 12. The women are kind of whitewashed out, but the women were some of the first people to see Jesus. And then you have he claims 500. The Creed claims 500. Then also, lastly, to Paul himself. So. Okay. The issue you're having is these people genuinely thought Jesus had died. It's pretty safe to say. We know Romans were pretty good about doing this. He is buried in a tomb. I think it's pretty easily evidenced that he's buried in a tomb. The tomb's discovered empty. Various people have what they would consider real experiences with Jesus after his death in a multi-sensory way. It's not some kind of grief hallucination. So I know that you've got the disciples on the road to Emmaus. I can't remember all the different people that the Gospels all record having this vision, but you also are experienced even atheist scholars. I mean, I could name some if you like that will admit disciples saw Jesus in a very real sense.
A lot of scholars, I will never try and swing it to where he never existed, because a good portion of scholars will agree that Jesus lived and was crucified. But
I'm making a stronger claim. I'm saying that a vast majority of, I should say, a lot of scholars who are skeptical will have to say, look, the evidence really points to these people had real experiences of Jesus. I'll read a couple quotes to you. This is Gert Ludemann. He's an atheist. He does not like Christianity, but he says it may be taken as historical certainty that Peter and the disciples had experiences of Jesus' death in which Jesus appeared to them as the risen Christ. Paula Fredrickson, this is a more... she's, again, a very strong skeptic of Christianity. She says what they saw was the raised Jesus. That's what they say. And then all the historic evidence we have afterwards attests to their conviction that that's what they saw. I'm not saying they really did see the raised Jesus. I wasn't there. I could read you some other ones, but I think you got the gist.
Right.
So they're not saying Jesus actually literally rose from the dead, but they're saying these disciples had extreme experiences where they thought he was actually alive. And you have to also remember, these Jews in that time period did not think their Messiah was going to be brutally executed and then rise from the dead. That was like a foreign concept to them. So usually we expect these types of hallucinations or, I don't know, mental events when someone's expecting them to happen. Like that's why people see Bigfoot or whatever, you know, they're expecting to see Bigfoot, but that's not what's going on here.
Right. The because there's a lot of strong evidence that the quote resurrection did happen. You know, we have historians agreeing that, you know, they grabbed a dude named Jesus that was a preacher. They didn't like what he was saying, so they crucified him.
I mean, that seems to be pretty accurate, yeah.
That's, you know, the general agreement among historians.
And then that people saw him alive after his execution, that he was buried in the public tomb. Tomb was empty.
They saw him.
People saw him
after, or they
his
saw
own brother.
Saw him, or they saw someone like him.
Yeah, but like these people, these disciples, the mother, like these various women, other people who followed Jesus knew who Jesus was. It's gonna be like you're gonna talk about like the greatest conspiracy theory of all time, that Jesus had a twin brother nobody knew about in a very communal culture when Jesus was from a very small town. That's pretty wild. You've come up with a couple wild claims.
Well, so the claim that I'm more sticking with, the theory that I'm sticking with, is that he wasn't dead, because kind of as long as they kind of stopped moving, they were considered dead. There are many reports among Roman soldiers.
But how do you get around the perikinesis or whatever? I can't remember the name of the condition Jesus has in his heart, which that's water. I mean, I'll have to look it up. Let me look it up. Medically, there are a few possibilities. Blood could have entered the heart. Water.
Yeah, it could have been
medical evidence of Jesus's execution or his death. So, I would say. I mean, there would be weird for John to just make this up. It seems as though he was just reporting like this thing happened. Blood and water. That seems to be a thing that happens when someone gets that cardiac. I think extreme stress will cause it. But so you're sticking with Christianity is false because Jesus didn't actually die.
Well, that's one of the reasons. You know, there's that. There's the fact that there's so much archaeological proof that a global flood never happened.
Okay, I mean, there's Christians that believe there's a local flood. Again, I'm saying if God exists and Jesus Christ rose from the dead, then Christianity is true. So that's where I like to debate on. If you want to debate on Noah's flood and stuff, I'm not the guy for you.
And then, the lack, I get it, the Bible didn't talk about chairs, but obviously there were chairs. But dinosaurs are a very significant thing. We know dinosaurs existed. We know that dinosaurs predated humans.
Sure. You can be a Christian and believe in an old earth. You can be a Christian and believe in evolution. There's theistic evolution. There's all sorts of different Christians that believe these things. You don't necessarily have to adopt a young earth creationism. That's kind of a newer belief that came out a couple hundred years ago. So, hey, I appreciate you coming up. I got a couple other people in the queue, so I'll probably move on to the next guest. Thanks, man. Give me a follow. I appreciate you coming up.
Yep.
Banana Duck. Duck. Hey, guys, my name is Make the Case. I am trying to do a live where I have good faith debates on Christianity, morality, ethics, pro-life, bioethics, pro-choice, things like that. So give me a follow. If you like this stuff, give me a heart, share this. I'm trying to get to 1,300 or 1,400 followers. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me up.
Yeah, man. What's up? How old are you?
I'm 41, I think. How old are you?
Dude, I'm 41, man.
Nice.
Yeah, I got the freaking gray hair to show it.
I got a question for you.
What's up?
Is there anything that if God commanded you to do it, you could tell God no and not be guilty of a sin?
Probably not. I mean, if God told me to do something, I'd probably have to do it. If you're asking me would I do everything God commanded, I would be very tough time doing a couple things for sure.
Right. In order to stay in alignment with Christianity, though, you would have to do everything that God commanded, or else you would fall out of
For sure.
God's grace. Therefore, you'd be grounds for termination. So if God commanded you to do something that you thought was atrocious, you would either face eternity of hell, or
I don't know if I buy that. I've done a lot of things that are atrocious in God's eyes. Yeah, I have grace for it. So I've done plenty of things God's told me to do that I haven't done. So I don't know if that's exactly the same thing. But yeah, so make your point. So you give me some horrible scenario in which God tells me to do it. I don't do it. Like, it doesn't mean that Christianity is false.
No, it's rational. So if you don't have access to say no without punishment, if you think that something is immoral,
I just said that if there is a thing called grace in Christianity, there's grace. So I've done plenty of things God's told me to do, and I haven't done them. So if God told me to do fair, God's telling me not to lie, to be, to love my brother, to not complain. I do it all the time, So God doesn't send me to hell. God took my place on the cross. So that's what Christians believe. So, Jesus makes it pretty clear what our moral standard is, like to love others, to love the least of these, forgive your enemy, things like that. So, I don't know if that's like what you consider like a difficult thing to live by. I mean, obviously it is difficult, but I don't see any moral issue with those things,
I was not talking about lying and mistreating your brother and lying. I'm talking about specifically when God commanded the slaughtering of Amalekites. If you were part of that military force and you were ordered to unalive women and children because that's what God said to do, would you participate in that? And if you didn't, then you would be guilty of a sin. So there's where the rationale gets removed from the religion, is that if God commands you to do something that is atrocious and you don't do it, you must act in accordance with the thing that you don't want to do.
Sure.
So you remove rational thought from the process.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think World War II was justified? Like, if you're an Allied soldier going in and unaliving Mr. Mustache Man, would you think it's justified?
I'm anti-war. I believe that war only happens when the power of words fails. So we have governments and we have people who are put in place to participate in avoiding the loss of life. So is it justified to protect yourself? And to some extent, yes, I do believe in self-defense, the right to self-defense. But I also believe that all acts of war are a failure of rational discussion.
I mean, I think you're probably right to a degree. I don't know if there's plenty of stuff that we know pretty relatively good that like these Canaanite people were absolutely evil. Like child sacrifice was completely common. If you cried when your child was being unalived in a fire, you were unalived. They would play music to their pagan gods to drown out the crying. There's bestiality was rampant. Child marriage was rampant. There was these are pretty evil, horrible people. So I think if you're gonna, I know you're more of a pacifist, but at some point, I imagine you would say, "Hey, this seems like a justified thing to do." So I get where you're coming from. But if God is the arbiter of if morality grounds in God, God can do whatever the heck He wants. His justice is justice. So I don't see an issue with that.
But if God commanded you to do something, God's not participating in the act of doing the immoral thing. You are. So if
God wants us to be a part of His justice.
Why does God require the help of humans in order to enact His word? or
I mean, I think
his
God,
belief.
I think the whole Christian story is God wanting us to be a part of it. Like we are supposed to be co-creators with God, owners with God in his world. So that it seems like a logical answer to me.
I'm interested. Like, it's interesting to me because when Lucifer wanted to be co-equal with God, that's what got Lucifer kicked out of heaven for wanting to be like the Most High.
Yeah, we
I
have
think
to
it's
realize
Genesis.
that we are not God. Lucifer wanted to be God. To become a Christian, you humble yourself and say, I am not God, and I am actually the opposite of God, and to accept grace from God. And so I think that's the idea of Christianity, is that's how we get equal with God, is because God became equal with us. But let me ask you a question. If Jesus rose from the dead, would you be a Christian?
If just Jesus rose from the dead, or if any human rose from the dead,
Jesus.
or is it specific to Jesus? Probably not. No.
So you don't really care if the evidence points to Jesus rising from the dead, and if God exists. You don't want to be with this God. So it sounds like God's going to honor your request and let you depart from him.
I find it very interesting that, like, you say it's going to honor my requests, but if there was truly an all-powerful existence that wanted it to be known that it is God, why would it honor my request to then not believe in it?
Do you want him to force you to be with him?
Convincing is forcing.
But I just literally asked you if that you knew Jesus rose from the dead, would you be a Christian? You said no. So it doesn't sound like it's belief you care about. Do you want God or knowledge or evidence? You don't care about it. You don't. If it was true, you wouldn't become a Christian. So would you want God to get into your brain and make you be a Christian? I don't understand what you're wanting God to do.
How does a human rising from the dead prove the existence of a God?
If he goes around and claims he's God, says all the stuff in the Old Testament that points to the Messiah they've been talking about for 1,000 years or a couple thousand years, and it claims he's going to get unalived and rise from the dead, it seems like God probably exists.
So if a human resurrected from death, and then it requires, once again, it has to claim that it's God. And this is
no, I'm just saying.
You
asked me in this scenario
as a whole.
Why would Jesus being raised from the dead not be evidence for God? And I'm saying if Jesus was going around saying, "I am God. I'm going to die. I'm going to rise again," and does it. It seems like we know non-logically in this physical world, we can't break the laws of logic. We call those miracles. It seems like a miracle did happen on that Easter Sunday. So God would exist.
Proof of God's existence self-evident, or does it require declaration?
I mean, I think you can reason to God existing. I wouldn't say it's self-evident. I mean, some people might, but for me, no.
Interesting. So would most lies and deceptions require declaration the same way that you're establishing God requires a claim? You don't know that God is God unless God tells you it is God. There is no proof, or God's all-powerful presence alone can't be self-evident truth that God exists.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you're asking me like a psychological question. I'm just saying, epistemologically, for me, I have to reason that God exists. I can't just know 100% like I know I exist.
Okay, and in your reasoning, does it include the fact that you're allowing an all-powerful God to use the same mechanism that liars and deceivers use, which is declaration?
Well, I don't know what about reason and deductive arguments and syllogism have anything to do with lying.
Well, okay, so liars use declared claims to establish what their truth is.
So what's the declared claim of like the teleological argument that the cosmological constants are fine-tuned? Have you heard of this before?
What is the claim? So are you talking about the fine-tuning argument?
Yeah. So like what's the what's the lie or whatever, the declaration in the teleological argument?
Okay, so I'm not okay. So just to be clear, I don't think you're understanding what it is that I'm saying. I'm saying
I know.
lie is a declaration. Okay, so a liar declares something to be the case. A person, all humans that say they are God are not telling the truth. You would agree to that, right? But all of them are making a declaration or a claim, right? So you're saying that if a human was to die and then come back to life, all they would need to do is use the same mechanism of truth that
Sure.
liars and
If
deceivers.
someone said, I am God, and tons of people saw him get brutally murdered, and then he rose from the dead, I'm going to have to take him seriously. It seems like a valid inference to me.
This is going to be a bit of a pivot, but you do agree that Jesus was murdered?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Is murder an immoral or
Executed.
moral act?
It's an immoral act.
Okay, can an immoral act be,
unjustified killing.
can an immoral act be used to forgive all sins?
It seems like it.
So
God
evil
can take
forgives evil?
God can take the evil that men did to Jesus and have the ultimate good come out of it. Forgiveness.
Okay, so in Christianity...
So like, I feel like your beef more is like, I don't feel like Christianity is true. You're not really giving me any arguments that Christianity is not true. Like, maybe come at me with like, the Gospels are unreliable, or that they're not eyewitnesses, or, you know, yada, yada. Like, you're just kind of like, it doesn't feel good, so I'm not going to believe it. I just don't really care.
So the ramifications of it being true is an immoral act is used to forgive all other immoral acts.
I don't care.
So if it is the case that it is true, then the Son was sacrificed by the Father. Would you agree that that's a moral act or an immoral act?
And I think what Jesus did was a moral act. He said, no greater love than this, that a man lays his life down for his friend. So Jesus, what he did was the most moral thing anybody could do. But the people, the actual Romans that murdered him, were doing evil. Do you have like any actual logical argument? Like, you want to, like, no offense, man, but like, you're hitting me with a bunch of like feelings and emotions. I just don't care about that. Do you have like anything else?
What feeling or emotion have I presented?
You're just saying, well, would you do this if God asked you to do that? Like this bad thing, it feels bad. Like, I just don't. You're not really giving me any type of argument.
I'm sorry. Can you restate that? It was very unclear. What emotion am I giving you as an argument?
It seems like you don't like the fact that God unalived the Canaanites, so therefore God doesn't exist. You think Jesus it feels like Jesus was executed in an evil way, so therefore Christianity isn't true. What else? I'm trying to think through everything you told me. You're just not giving me like a logical thing to debate you with. You're just saying my feelings are hurt.
Once again, okay, so is not liking something an emotion?
Yep.
And what emotion is that if you were to identify it?
It's literally the definition of it. If I don't like something, liking is an emotion. Say what?
Liking, preference is an emotion.
Preference? The liking seems like an emotion. Preference might be more different than that. Hey, do you want to actually have like? No offense, I got someone else waiting. I can move on. Do you have like anything else you want to say? You already told me that if Jesus rose from the dead, you wouldn't be a Christian. So I don't think you really care about evidence.
Okay. And I asked you a question, and how would that prove a God exists? Exactly. Can you answer that again?
I think I'll move on, man. I appreciate you coming up, Free Notes. I can't keep doing this circular stuff. Aaron in the wilderness. You've been waiting a while. What's up, guys? Hey, real quick, give me a like, give me a follow. I'm trying to get this channel up. I'm gonna try to have good faith debates with people. I don't always succeed. What's up, Aaron? How old are you?
I am in my early 50s. Nice,
man. How's life from the 50s?
Oh boy. I can write a... Right, you're kind of like double voiced, but it sounds cool, so I'm all right with that.
My internet might be glitching. Is it better now?
It might be on my end. I can understand you, so that's all that
All
matters.
right, cool.
I was just gonna say, I think that it's more rational to believe that the apostles were mistaken than it is to believe in an actual resurrection. And honestly, I can stop there at the moment. I was just gonna say, I think that you have the same result. The massive growth from mustard seed, 12 guys growing into a movement that eventually took over the entire Western world and influenced everything, our culture, our moral systems, our music, art. I think you'd have the same result of that if there was a mere belief in the resurrection.
So you're thinking that they were mistaken, like they had hallucinations? Like, how would you explain their mental states where they actually think they're talking, eating with Jesus, touching his wounds, things like that?
Well, I think one good everyday what's the word I'm looking for? Everyday explanation for that is that, because you mentioned hallucination, it could be both very rational, very believable that maybe one of the first to see the empty tomb, which should have been maybe Mary and maybe Peter, had a bereavement vision of sorts. Since that happens to 30 to 50% of people who lose someone dear to them have
It's usually it's about 50% people. But
gotcha.
if you actually look at the data on that, it's very, 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 very small that actually have any type of real thinking they're alive. And then it's really almost unheard of to have a multimodal grief hallucination, let alone several people having the exact same one. They're kind of mental states in your mind.
Well, I don't know that it would be that as much as it could be. I mean, there's several everyday possibilities for this. One everyday possibility, is maybe Peter or Mary had a bereavement vision, told the others, I saw Jesus, I saw our Lord. And they, grieving as they were, very grieving, they left their entire lives to follow Jesus of Nazareth. They could have possibly rejoiced and said, well, how could this be? If Jesus is alive, if you've seen him, then that would mean that, of course, God would have had to have risen him from the grave. And if that's the case, the Messiah might be more than just overcoming the enemies. It could be a spiritual overcoming.
I think that would have a lot of issues with it, because you're saying essentially just Peter and Mary had a hallucination, told everybody else, and they were just like, yup, let's do it. Let's radically change our entire worldview. Everything we thought about the Messiah. Literally had no idea this was going to happen. Like, first off, the idea of a grief hallucination is like, or the idea of an hallucination is like a in that sense, you're going to be expecting it. You're going to have like an intention, it's like your mind will be primed for it. And so I don't think like these people had that in their background. They thought their Messiah was not going to be like this. And so when he was executed, they were scared. They didn't think at all this was going to be a possibility. They thought they were going to get murdered probably. And so like, that's a first hurdle, is you've got to convince a whole group of people that, hey, this hallucination I saw was actually real. Jesus actually existed and was alive, and I ate with him and I chilled with him. And then you have other people like, oh yeah, actually you're right, we did meet up with Jesus at one time. It's like, that kind of goes against all human psychology. Were you up here when I read the quotes from the atheist scholar?
I think so. There's the only actual atheist scholar today would be about Ehrman. Some of the other people like Richard Carey or some others aren't really taken seriously. But let me back up and say that I think if if they believed that he was resurrected, um, I mean, whether or not they were expecting it, it wouldn't matter. All they had to do, if they believed he resurrected, they would just do what you do see happening in the Gospels. You see all these stories that Jesus did, and they look back in the Old Testament to find anything that matches it to prove that this is what
But
the
what's
Messiah
the
was
what's the
supposed to do.
story about them eating fish with Jesus, hanging out with him? Like,
Yeah,
I don't think there's a
I
story
don't.
to parallel that. But here, let me read this quote to you. I read it to the last guy. So this is Gert Ludemann. He is not a Christian. He's an atheist. New Testament. He's got plenty of work. You can read it. He does not like Christianity. He says it may be taken as a historical certainty that Peter and the disciples had experiences after Jesus' death in which Jesus appeared to them as the risen Christ. This is Paula Fredrickson. What they saw was the raised Jesus. That's what they say. And then all the historic evidence we have afterwards attests to their conviction that that's what they saw. I'm not saying they really did see the raised Jesus. I wasn't there. This is E.P.
I mean,
Sanders. Equally secure
there's-
facts indicate, real quick, the last one. Equally secure facts indicate that Jesus' disciples saw him. In what sense it is not certain after his death. There's other ones I could read, but like I'm saying, the evidence
read a
these
couple, read a
atheists
couple
are
other
saying.
ones. What
Sure.
are a couple of other ones? Because so far,
Rudolf Bultmann, historical criticism can establish the fact that the first disciples came to believe in the resurrection, but an historical fact which involves a resurrection from the dead is utterly inconceivable. So he's saying it is a
I'm
fact.
sorry. What was it that that was my connection's fault?
You're
What
good.
was inconceivable?
He said it's inconceivable but an historical fact which involves a resurrection from the dead is utterly inconceivable. So he's saying, look, they all came to believe this, but he's not believing that it actually happened. And so he's just saying,
Right.
all the evidence points to these people really thinking they saw Jesus alive.
I'm fine with the minimal. That's one of the minimal facts, of course, and that's correct. I think you'd be really hard pressed to find any scholar or historian.
You'd be
who
hard
would
pressed
say
to
that-
find TikTok atheists that care about scholars.
Well,
No offense to you, but a lot of people
Yeah.
I listen to talk to do not care about this.
but you'd be well. Yeah, I'm sure you're right about that. I've really always, from the days that I was a strong believing Christian up until now, into my agnosticism, I've always been interested in the topic and in what the scholars have to say. But you'd be hard pressed to find any historian on this topic who would say that the apostles weren't preaching and teaching a resurrected Jesus very early on in the ministry. I mean, maybe Richard Carrier, because he's a mythicist, he doesn't really believe there was a Jesus to begin with, but I don't think anyone even takes him seriously.
I mean,
Even Bart
TikTok people
Ehrman,
do. Yeah, Bart Ehrman would laugh at him about some stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So.
and Bart Ehrman, I don't know what Bart Ehrman takes him seriously on, if anything. He certainly doesn't take his mythicism seriously. But anyway, yes, very early on, the apostles.
So I think I've actually talked to you before, Aaron. I think I remember talking to you before. And I think we kind of landed on the fact that, like, possibly, I don't know if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but like, I think you landed on the fact that, like, hey, there's a bunch of smart people that think Jesus rose from the dead. There's a bunch of smart people that don't think he did. And you're kind of just like, you're not really spot on the Christian side of things.
You probably did talk to me then, because when I say that, my point is, so you must have talked to me. Yes. What I would have said was this. I think that this is kind of a battle of presuppositions, and maybe I'm simplifying it too much, because huge books, libraries have been written on this topic of the resurrection. And I come along and simplify it too much by saying, you know what? At this point, I think it's just a battle of the presuppositions. So, because there's a lot of smart people, way smarter than me, scholars infinitely smarter than me, that believe he did rise from the dead, and a lot who say he didn't. But the reason why I say it was a battle of presuppositions is because if you're someone like me who has a presupposition of skepticism towards resurrections and walking on whatever the miracle
Which
is,
you should. I think it's a rational position.
if I come to supernatural claims with a presupposition, a default position right out of the gate of skepticism, then yes, I'm going to say it's more rational that the apostles made a mistake. And if, on the other hand, if you're someone who has a presupposition that there is a God who can make these miracles happen, then you're going to look at the apostles and say, no, they weren't mistaken. So then I say it's just kind of a battle of the presuppositions. So you apparently
so
have
I think you're probably right. I mean, I think we've had this exact same discussion before.
Okay.
Like, no, you're good. I am skeptical. I find myself a lot of times saying, I can't believe I believe this. A guy 2,000 years ago was crucified and arose from the dead. But every time I actually think about it logically, I'm just like, that just seems to be the best explanation. Like, I don't know of anything. I think in my brain, it is the most parsimonious. It is the one thing that explains everything, the easiest and the simplest. And so if that is like, I take that belief, I do it for everything else, I'm going to apply it to this. If I think God exists, then I'm just going to go with the simplest explanation, because I think denying the resurrection, you have to kind of cobble together a lot of weird, like odd assumptions that stack and stack and stack. And I just don't like believing that kind of stuff.
I don't really see that at all. And it's not your position. It's a lot that Christians say this all the time. I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on the Christian position that you'd have to believe all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't see it at all. I think that the most parsimonious to say, and this again, this isn't. I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on the Christian
You're good.
position.
You can rip me up if you want.
To say that it's most parsimonious to believe that someone resurrected, to me, is just ludicrous. I think it's 1,000%, and that's a colloquial. I shouldn't say that. Let's be more exact here. It's 100% more parsimonious to believe that they made a mistake, because the reason is because we know that people make mistakes and I don't mean mistakes like, oops, I dropped my car keys. I mean, people make mistakes that are life altering all the time. People, for example, the people who believe that they were abducted by aliens, or people that they believe that they've seen Bigfoot, or people that believe that they've seen you can go on and on. Like it happens. So to say that they made a mistake is what, to me anyway, not to you,
So, like,
not to most Christians, that's parsimonious.
So, like,
to say that someone rose from the dead, to me, it's ludicrous to say that's parsimonious.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
Call me an evil skeptic, I guess. But
I mean, I think you are being way too skeptical. It sounds like it doesn't matter how much evidence, you could just never believe in the resurrection. Well, to me, that's like someone in Africa 5,000 years ago, and someone from way up north says, "Hey, there's this thing that's white that comes from the sky, and it's really cold." They'd be like, "That's ludicrous. It can't happen. It's not real. Snow can't be a thing." And it's like, well, it actually is the case. And someone saying quantum mechanics 200 years ago is real, you think they're crazy. It just seems like, hey, if that's where the evidence points to, that's where the evidence points to. I don't really care what the ending is. And obviously you disagree. I'm just saying, like, if from my perspective, this is a lot of evidence of a lot of different people, lots of multiple sources or independent sources, I would say, that go back to within Jerusalem, the early church community. This is a public event, public tomb, public execution, a creed developing in the very city Jesus is executed in, passed along very early, like that has multiple eyewitnesses. Paul says, literally, go talk to them. Essentially, you have the creed in Philippians 2, where Jesus is deified with a very high language of Yahweh language, essentially, very early. So, like, a lot of this demands explanation. And I just think that it's a tough time for the naturalists to say, someone stole the body, these people had grief, hallucinations. Sure. Is there one
Let's
you
take that one
want
by one. There might be a lag because you lagged for a second, and that means that I'm probably going to lag. But and that's on my end. Let's take those one by one because every single thing you said to me, to me, is not evidence at all. Like let's take this one by one. Everything you just said.
Sure. Wade, go ahead.
All right. I mean, where do you?
Well, so
want to
let's
start?
just
We can
take
start with it.
one, the eyewitness testimony. I would say it's strong evidence these are eyewitness testimonies.
Well, okay. So I don't think that. It depends on what you mean. I don't think that the Gospels certainly aren't eyewitness testimonies.
So that's what I think. That's where I disagree. I would say there is strong evidence that these are connected to eyewitness testimony. I'll give you Luke as probably just a quick example. I think Luke is about the most. The other ones are pretty strong too, but the most reliably way to say that this seems as though it's a doctor or a physician that actually traveled with Paul. And if that is the case, and he abruptly ends his acts all about Paul, all about him going to Caesar, he includes the unalivement of James, the brother of John, but not James, the brother of Jesus, not Peter, not Paul. Or that mentions the destruction of the temple. He's a very good historian. So it's like, why does he abruptly end this? If we've applied this same criteria elsewhere, it seems like as though he wrote this before it happened. He ended it.
Well,
And if that is the case, then he's copying from Matthew and Mark that date back earlier. So I think this is probably written in the 60s and 50s.
Well, he certainly copied from Mark. I don't know about Matthew, but he certainly copied from Mark. But
Mark.
although I don't think we have any reason whatsoever to believe it was from Luke. It doesn't even claim that. But however,
But
regardless,
why would you say that? If we have
Because it doesn't
multiple
say-
independent
first of
people
all-
saying it,
First of all, the book is anonymous, but it doesn't claim to be by Luke. But second of all, even if it was from Luke, that's not an eyewitness.
yeah, you're right. But what does he say at the beginning of this gospel?
He says most excellent Theophilus, many have undertaken to create a of Jesus of Nazareth. Now gonna go and do this as well. I'm gonna take some other people's accounts in mind, and he tells Theophilus his goal in writing this. Other people have tried it, and now he's taking his hand at it.
He
too.
wants to write
We
an
don't know
orderly
who
account
wrote
to
it.
Theophilus. Yeah, that's fair. It's
Yeah.
internally anonymous, but we have other works in ancient history that are internally anonymous. Pretty like Xenophon. I think the Gallic Wars. I can't remember Anabasis.
Right.
A couple other
But
writings.
my point isn't to say it's
Plutarch.
anonymous, although it is. My point is to say even if it was Luke, it's not an eyewitness.
Sure, but I think you can look at the actual text in it, and you can see evidence of eyewitness testimony. If he is talking to actual people, the spots where we know he's Greek, very high polished Greek. He seems to be a historian, and he gets a lot of detail right. That would be very difficult to forge later on. So this puts him, I think, in the time period. Have you heard of onomastic congruence?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things he gets wrong too. But that's kind.
Onomastic congruence. So onomastic
sorry?
congruence is naming patterns. So we know what the general names were in Judea at that time period, because a Jewish historian actually pulled all these off manuscripts, ossuaries. You can there's a peer-reviewed paper called How Naming Popularity is a Good Test for Historicity. It's long, but it's peer-reviewed. They essentially look at the Gospels, compare it to Josephus, compare it to second century forgeries, and compare it to historical fictions, and say, do these names line up with the names of the general population, and do we expect to see them? The Gospels get it better than Josephus does. And then as you go, the forgeries are way off because they're way later in a different time period. So like I think all this evidence puts this writing in the time period of the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah,
And then if you have multiple people saying, you have the anti-Marcionite prologue, you have the Moratorian fragment, say Irenaeus, Tertullian, Clement, different papyrus that says, according to Luke, they talk about him being a doctor. In the we sections of Acts, it seems like he really is traveling with Paul. He gets, names of officials right. That's corroborated over and over and over again. Like, to me, it's like, why not just accept this as written by Luke?
Well,
It doesn't mean Christianity is true.
I'd accept it as written by someone from that time period, but it doesn't say anything about Luke. And Luke was not an eyewitness.
Yeah, and whoever wrote this is not saying they are a disciple. They're saying they're interviewing eyewitnesses. So, like, I'm just saying, if you can agree with me that it seems like it is written in that early time frame, and you have multiple people that say it was written by Luke, you have Paul saying, hey, my friend Luke, who is a physician in Colossians, that's multiple pieces of evidence. Where I would say the best inference, if this was like literally any other work in ancient history, we would say, yeah, Luke wrote it. But I just feel like people are biased against it or raise their skepticism up.
Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. The book doesn't tell us. We have to guess. But my point is, it wasn't written by somebody who saw the risen Jesus, who saw the crucifixion, who saw any of it. He wasn't an eyewitness. I don't know if it was Luke or not. I don't think it was. Maybe it was. What do I know? But no matter how you slice it, he wasn't an eyewitness.
Okay, well, I think a good evidence for eyewitnesses, you seem like you actually like this stuff, so you should read a book called The Historical Tell by Luke Vandewey. And he pretty much says, hey, he talks mostly about Luke. So if this is from eyewitness accounts, these are certain things we'd expect to see. One of them is the onomastic congruence. But another, like a couple of them are, obviously historical detail. Luke seems to be getting this right. But, I forgot where I was going to go with that. I just think it's multiply independently attributed to Luke in that time period. Oh, this is what I was going to say. He talks about Semitisms, like these Jewish phrases, idioms, that a Greek speaker probably wouldn't know unless he's actually talking to people in that area who actually use them. So areas where he is not copying Mark, or the areas where he's not there, like the we passages, his use of Semitisms goes like 400% higher. So you can actually see him sourcing this from different people in different ways. So it seems like to me, like he is talking to Jews in that time period, getting their names right, getting the archaeology right. And we have, I think, 5 or 6, 7 attributions that Luke actually wrote it. He's getting medical language, very detailed medical language that the other authors don't get. So it seems like he's a physician. At some point, there's got to be a point where you're just like, yeah, that's where the evidence goes.
I think it was written the book itself was written in the 80s, and it was written in that area. Yes, I don't think that if someone is claiming it was written 100 or 200 years later, I think that they'd be
that's crazy. But like, how would you explain to someone writing in the 80s who this person traveled with Paul? And it seems like if you read the we passage of Acts, the Acts 16 on, mostly, whoever's writing it really implies he was with Paul. And all these places he's going, he's getting the Roman official titles right over and over again, the distances to cities right. Like, how would you explain this? Like, a late forger would have no access to this information.
The book of Acts contradicts Paul all the time. Whoever wrote Acts, Paul probably never read Acts to correct it, because Paul contradicts Acts all the time.
If you read in Acts 13, his speech, it's almost exactly Pauline.
Where he went from
in Acts 13, he talks to
the speeches. The speeches in Acts are written in a way where Luke's. I don't know how technical you want to go here. Maybe really technical. I don't know. But that's not true.
No, I'm just saying the actual. I'm saying not the words. Like, this is probably Luke just translating what the gist of what Paul's saying. But if you compare Acts 13 speech to the I can't remember where he was at, and you compare it to his Galatians, Romans stuff, there is a lot of similarities with what Jesus is saying, by grace, by faith, these different things that God raised him from the dead.
The author of Luke, the gospel, and you can see this in Acts too, where Mark, when he copied from Mark, where Mark was talking about the atonement, him being sacrificed for our sins, the author of the book of Luke, and you can see this in Acts 2 as well, and Paul never would have said this.
Is
The author of Luke
this
takes
the
out,
Peter sermon?
I think so. Maybe it's Peter. The author of Luke takes out word for word Mark, but he takes out the atonement stuff. Instead, in Luke, you don't have atonement. And this is a problem when trying to compare this to Paul, because Paul was very big on atonement. Instead, the author of Luke's, and again, this is technical, this might be going off the beaten path when we're supposed to be talking about the resurrection, but the author, whoever wrote Luke, whether it was Luke or not, didn't really believe that Jesus's death was for atonement. Rather, and you can see this in Acts and in Luke. Rather, he believed it was to make us sorry and repentant that we would crucify an innocent man, and that repentance, that heartbreak that we would do this to such an innocent good man would lead us to repentance. And you can see that in Acts plainly, where he said they were pricked to the heart. They said,
but isn't it Luke?
In Acts, he said in Acts, you who whatever crucified or whatever he said, an innocent man. And when they heard this, this is echoing what he also says in Luke. This is echoing what he took out of his copying Matthew. This is echoing what he took out in Luke. It's the same thing. In Acts, he's like, the speech is you unalived or whatever he said, an innocent man. And when they heard this, they were pricked to the heart and said, brother, what shall we do? He took out atonement stuff. And he does the same thing when he talks.
In Luke, in the Lord's Supper, he says, this is the new covenant that is in my blood.
Yes, you have. That's the thing. You have to go to the Lord's Supper to find any part of atonement, which is the one part where many scholars, conservative and not so conservative, believe that was an addition. That's the bugaboo about that. They say that that's an addition because we don't have to, this is getting a little too off the beaten path, but that was clearly an addition. And the only part that you can point to in Luke where it talks about atonement is when you go to the addition, when he's talking about the Lord's Supper, saying, this is my body, this is my bread, given for many, given to many. Then suddenly you got, but someone added that for obvious reasons. And you can see it in Acts too, as well. There isn't really this Pauline stuff about atonement and dying for our sins. And that's one big area.
Is it like consensus that this is added? Because I've never heard this before.
We have to Google that real quick. I'm not sure. Google. Does Luke take atonement? Is there a concept of atonement in the book of Luke? And then see what it says about and then Google or AI will take you to that passage you just mentioned, and see if you can dig a little bit deeper. Is that consensus? I'm not sure, or is it thought about? It's because Google's going to say yes, in that passage there's atonement about the Last Supper, and then hopefully it'll tell you if it's consensus, because where Matthew copied Mark, he left the atonement in. Where Matthew copied Mark, he left the atonement in.
Sorry, TikTok's being weird. So I just Googled it. So you are right on some things, that the case that's thin or absent. Luke omits some stuff, like you said. The case that it's present, the institution of the Lord's Supper, it doesn't say Western non-interpolation issue. Acts 20:28, the church is obtained through his blood. Luke 26, Jesus insists the Messiah had to suffer. I think that's Isaiah 53 language. And Isaiah 53 allusions in Acts 8:32. How scholars reconcile this, blah, blah. I can go to that stuff later. My only point is if Luke is traveling with Paul and he's getting all these different sources, but his one source where he's actually like, him and Paul don't have to have the exact same type of theology or say the exact same things for him not to have traveled with Paul. And so it seems like he really did travel with Paul. And his one speech that I know of in Acts 13, it seems like it is what Paul would say. Now, obviously not verbatim, but I think that is.
Well, he would have added the atonement. I don't think there's anything about atonement. There is my problem with saying that. But here, about eyewitnesses. Here's the thing with eyewitnesses. This may or may not blow your mind. I don't know. We only have
get my mind ready.
Okay. We only have one, unless we have talked before, so maybe you've heard, maybe we talked about this before, so if so, your mind might not be that blown, but we only have one eyewitness, and it's only a half-ass eyewitness at that. We only have one eyewitness in the Bible that says, I saw the risen Christ. There's literally only one. Do you know who that is?
John, I don't know.
It's Paul.
Oh, Paul, yeah.
We only have one, and that's half. The reason why I say half-ass is because it was in a vision.
Yeah.
It wasn't even an actual eyewitness, but that's it. Everything else is second-hand or third-hand. It's like,
sure.
And then the disciples saw him. The disciples ate with him.
But that's not really uncommon for that time period. I mean, if you look at some of the other ancient historical works, it's not like that. We could still extrapolate plenty of data out of it. But
so I'm only saying the eyewitness thing is weak. That we don't have eyewitness. We don't have eyewitness accounts of.
Well,
people say
I mean,
that.
we could go into more stuff. I think Luke is talking to eyewitnesses. There's plenty of evidence, I think, to point that he is. If Matthew is actually a tax collector, we'd expect certain things. In his gospel, I feel like we do
Matthew's
see a lot of.
Matthew didn't write that.
But I think we did. I think the earliest source, Papias, mentions that. Or no, yeah, it is Matthew. He mentions Matthew. He also mentions a Hebrew sayings document or something like that. But if again, this goes back to the idea of where does the evidence point to? If we have multiple people independently, thousands of miles apart from each other, receiving the exact same transmission that Matthew wrote his gospel, no other competing theory that we know of, all the papyrus flyleafs show that according to Matthew. And we know if this is true, he's a tax collector, he should probably know some stuff about money. Every money parable comes from there. He gets money coinage right. That would be very difficult for a later forger to know when they utterly destroyed the temple and changed the actual currency. He gets the exchange rates right. So I think that seems like if we have multiple independent attribution, he wrote it, and you have internal evidence that some guy who knew a lot about money who compartmentalized things was Jewish, gets the naming patterns right. Okay, it seems like Matthew wrote it. Then you look at Mark. Seems as though he is influenced by Peter. Peter is in the inclusio. As Peter's at the beginning, Peter's at the end. Almost everything is seen through Peter's eyes. There's a lot of detail in there that seems to mark of an eyewitness. I just think that, again, you have multiple independent people saying Mark wrote it and it was interpreted by Peter. It's in Rome. I just feel like this, to me, in my simple mind, if you were to show me these documents and they were not the Gospels, they were literally anything else in ancient history, you would have zero issues saying that these people who are multiply attributed actually wrote it.
No, if there any ancient document that's anonymous, people are extremely hesitant as far as historians to say.
Plutarch, Tacitus, Xenophon, there's plenty of internally anonymous works that will say, yeah, they probably wrote it because of X, Y, Z. And their attributions for them are much, much, much later than what we have across the Roman world for the gospel authorships.
They would have absolutely no way of knowing who wrote those gospels. They would have absolutely no way of knowing who wrote them. There's no possible way to know.
Besides the external attributions, the internal evidence, yeah, you might be right.
Well, saying there's a lot of medical, terminology in Luke.
I mean, if you have multiple people saying that Luke was a physician, and you get into the text, and there's literally nothing in there that even remotely sounds like something a physician from that time period would say, you'd be like, probably wrong. But if you have multiple people saying he was a physician, and then you can actually research this. They actually have thesauruses and I can't remember the name of it. They took all these manuscripts, compiled them together. We have a technology now where we can actually run searches for things. There's the phrases in Luke Acts, which no other person would put together besides known physicians in that time period. He talks about dropsy. He talks about how long the fever was, how many days they were bleeding. He defends doctors. At some point, you have to just say, this is where the evidence goes. I don't know what more, to me, it's like obvious. I don't know why this is even debated. And I think it's debated because there's a prophecy in Luke. And then if you get to this road, you're like, hey, Christianity seems to make a lot of sense and people don't like that.
What do you mean, the prophecy of Luke? To me,
the destruction of the temple.
To me, it doesn't really matter who wrote the Gospels. I just think that the people that say that we know who wrote them.
I'm not saying we know. I'm just saying the inference, I think, is strong. I think it's strong, and we should believe it. It's a reasonable to believe.
We only have one person who says, here's sign my name, saw Jesus. That's one eyewitness account. And it's Paul. We have one, and it wasn't even.
But then Paul says he talked to Peter, James in Jerusalem and conferred. Hey, am I preaching the same thing you are? They said yes. Peter talks about knowing a Paul. Acts talks about Peter and Paul knowing each other. It's like, what point do you just say this? I get where you're coming from, but I think you're just being way overly skeptical. You can just say, hey, this is where the evidence goes, but I just a naturalist. I don't believe it. Miracles can happen, and that's it. That's fine.
I don't think that it's. I think it's. And again, this isn't picking on you. This is picking on the church position. I think it's ludicrous to say that it's being overly skeptical to say that somebody made a mistake rather than somebody rose from the unalivement. That's ludicrous to me. I can't fathom that. How is it overly skeptical to say someone made a mistake?
I'm talking about these small historical details in which, if literally any other type of work had the same exact attribution and the exact same internal evidence, we would have no issue whatsoever saying these authors wrote them. That is just a fact.
You should sometime Google contradictions between Luke, Acts, and Paul.
Well, there's contradictions in Suetonius and Tacitus, yet we are totally cool knowing there's historical nuggets in there. So I am just saying what my mind mentality is if these are good methodologies and everything else in ancient history, just apply them equally. And the Gospels come out much stronger. We do not.
I
absolutely do not.
I can't think of any place where I'm inconsistent. I don't know about scholars. I'm not a scholar, but if
not you,
if somebody said that there's all kinds of historical happenings that are recorded that scholars as well as myself would believe the scholars that probably happened, and then the miraculous stuff we throw out.
Yeah, that's my point. Just do the exact same thing with the Gospels. Yeah, do the exact same thing with the Gospels.
The miraculous
do the exact same thing with the Gospels, and you're going to be left with a pile of evidence that the best inference is Jesus Christ rose from the dead.
So if I throw out the resurrection but keep the crucifixion, then that is what I do.
What I would do is go home, take out your Gospels, and just erase everything in there that is a miraculous, and then just say, hey, look, let's look at the external attributions. Let's look at the internal attributions. Let's look at the naming patterns. Let's look at all these archaeological evidence, distance to supports, terminologies, these things. Can we say that these were actually written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
Well,
seems pretty reliable. Is it written early? It seems pretty reliable. Let's combine it with Paul's works. Let's combine it with all these other things. Then you have a vast array of, I think, is a solid historical backing where plus you throw in the minimal facts, and it's like, at what point do you just say, John, what is the best inference?
I could tell you what the point is. First of all, John couldn't have written it because he was illiterate, according to Acts. And scribes
existed.
And well, scribes existed. He lived in backwoods Galilee as a fisherman and spoke Aramaic. He would have had to have found
Okay.
not a scribe, but
Well, do you
it would have
think
been it would have been an
these?
amanuensis. And to
Well,
find an
Peter,
amanuensis,
and I mean, Paul talks about his scribe. Peter talks about his scribe. Bart Ehrman himself says it was common
it
for
would
people to use scribes. So
it would
why
be an
can't it?
amanuensis.
Well, we know. I don't know what amanuensis is, but like,
It's
I'm just saying.
it's someone who would have copied what somebody wrote, but he didn't speak the language. These gospels are polished koine. They are polished koine.
No, Mark is not polished Koine.
No, I'm talking about John, and it is
Well,
written.
a lot of people think disciples may have had a help in writing this down. I don't know much about the linguistics inside John, but
Koine. Why wouldn't they have been in Aramaic if it was from an Aramaic?
I mean, most people in that time period were bilingual. They could have known Aramaic and Greek.
No. If you Google it, most people were illiterate, except for the very highly wealthy and the very highly educated. They were 90 in the 95 percentile to 99. They were illiterate, except for the very highly educated and very highly wealthy, which is why Paul was so literate, because he was both educated and wealthy when he was in his Pharisee days. He could have done it, but the apostles, absolutely not. I mean, people say that Matthew would have known some numbers because he was going door to door as a tax collector, but not to that level of a gospel. They couldn't have written it, but I don't necessarily care who wrote it.
I just Googled your claim, and it seems as though I just said, did most people in Judea know Greek and Aramaic? Yes. Why? Because Aramaic was the primary everyday language. Hebrew remained important. Greek was widely used as a second language, particularly in cities, commerce, administrations, interconnecting with the broader Greco-Roman world. So that seems to be a respectful claim. Language. People can not know how to write and still know language.
Yeah, of course.
So like these people are fishermen. They're not stupid. They know how to talk to people, especially fishermen who do commerce. They probably would know Greek. Greek was the backbone of commerce. They'd also probably know Aramaic because that's the language, the common language. So like, Aaron, I appreciate you coming up, man. I don't want to like get to the point where we're just kind of back and forth, but hey, I'll probably move on. But I appreciate you coming up, man.
All right, understood.
Thanks, man. I feel like you're being a little bit too skeptical on that one. I don't have anybody in the queue, so if you want to hop up, feel free to come on up. I am not running. I feel like at some point we just kind of have to agree to disagree. If you think I'm running, come up here, Dave. Talk to me. I feel like that was a pretty respectful conversation.
You.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, bro.
What's up? So I'm assuming you disagree. First off, how old are you?
I'm 18.
18. What's up, man? Are you an atheist? Where are you coming from?
I'm like spiritual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your beef with Christianity?
Can I just tell you what I think religion is before I say that?
Sure.
All right. So like there's two. So the reason we know nothing about like metaphysical energy and like dark energy and quantum mechanics and stuff like that, but specifically metaphysical energy. The reason we don't know anything about that stuff is because like the phone you're holding is like 10 years old, bro. The Industrial Revolution was very recently. And what I'm trying to tell you is we know nothing about the universe. Like we don't know anything about the universe yet. So with religion, listen, there is one ultimate creator, right? Like one creator that created everything. But you know what that creator created in the beginning?
Huh.
Metaphysical and like beings capable of never mind, but I'm saying this is where it gets important. This is where it gets cool.
Micah, did you like smoke something before you came up here?
No.
All right, just check it. All right, keep going.
But this is where it gets cool, and this is the case. Like this is actually the case. When the creator created those metaphysical beings, they tried to make their own legacy with religion. Like they had an ego, and all the different religions you see are just those entities creating their own legacy. And like I said, they're not God. They're not the God. They're like God. They're almost like God, but They're just creating their own legacy.
Gotcha. This is probably not a conversation that I would be able to help you with because I have no idea what you're talking about. Because I think the evidence points to one God, and I say Jesus Christ rose from the dead. That's kind of what my thinking is, and so I agree with you on some of that. It sounds like we're gonna just be. I think you're just in a different mindset than I am.
And also, we're in the Matrix.
Okay, there you go. Hey, I appreciate you coming up, Micah.
No problem, bro. You have a good night, bro.
Thanks, man.
All right, man.
The Matrix. What's up, y'all? Give me a follow if you want to try to do some good faith discussions with people.
Yo, what's up, man?
What up, Charlie? How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. You having a good Saturday?
Yeah, man. I'm just chilling, bro. Nothing too much
Nice.
going on.
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 19. I'm 19.
You're 19. All right, man. What do you disagree with?
It's nothing to disagree with you. I'm just more so like questioning you as to like why you think that there is like one God and why you think that you're right on this topic. Cause there's so many different religions and so much different evidence that points to other gods. Like, what makes your God the right answer?
So, I mean, I'm going to say I think the evidence for God existing is strong. There's plenty of arguments that we could run through where I think it would point to God existing, or the best inference is God existing. And after like so many of them together, the chain of all these cumulatively is to where I'm saying it's as strong that God exists. And then I would say, hey, if there was a dude named Jesus Christ who walked around the earth 2,000 years ago, was a rabbi, claimed to be God, executed, rose from the dead, started a revolutionary idea of like, universal human principles, human value, things like that. That means Christianity is true. And so that's kind of why I would say Christianity is the most rational position, because of all the evidence. I think the best inference is that it's true.
So you would say that it just makes the most sense, but you wouldn't discredit other positions on the topic of religion, or like you would are you saying like this is like the only right answer, or the other people's like
in my mind, yeah, this would be the only right answer, because like if Christianity is true and Jesus actually rose from the dead and he says there's no other way to heaven besides me, then there is no other way. Like,
well, you kind of just like that point, like you just say like if it's true, right? Like if it's true, like if anything's true. There's no like actual like concrete evidence that what you're saying is correct. It's just that based off like what you believe and your theory that this is the correct answer in your opinion.
But do you know what I mean by inference?
Like elaborate. Like what do you mean?
So like we can look at data. Let's pretend we're going to a crime scene and we look at this weapon, blood on it, this thing over here, the body is over here, and we have a note over here, and we get the DNA evidence over here. And at some point, you're going to look at all these pieces of evidence and say, oh, the inference is that roommate did it, or, unalived them. Because of all the evidence, you're inferring this is happening. Maybe there's no videotape of it. Maybe there's no anything specifically that you obviously had to do it, but it's like 99% sure it happened. I'm saying that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm saying I can't prove God exists. I can't prove Jesus rose from the dead. But I'm saying the best inference of all the data as I see it is that Christianity is true. So I can't prove it. I'm just saying I think it's the most rational position.
Yeah, I don't think I'm educated enough to like prove you right or wrong. It's just that like I think that it's kind of like, I don't know like what the right word is, but like just to like take this one stance so that everything else is wrong and this is the most like rational, correct opinion. It's just kind of like outlandish to me. Like I feel like you need like to fully appreciate the situation, like have like an opinion like that on like religion. But I'm not like fully educated enough to like prove you right or wrong. Is like what I'm saying.
I mean, do you think Islam is true?
I'm not saying like one thing's right or wrong. I think that's more system. I'm more like an agnostic like stance of like this could be the correct answer, this could be like the wrong answer or whatever.
Well, let's just say this. Let's say God exists. Let's just say you come to the belief God exists, and then you look at all the evidence for resurrection, and you're like, it seems as though resurrection exists. It happened. Then it's like it kind of just by a logical entailment says that Christianity is true, and if that's true, everything else is false.
Yeah, so like my stance is like I'm more of like an agnostic, and I believe that there is a higher power, and I do believe like in a deity. I just don't believe that it's like fair to say that I'm right and you're wrong whenever it comes to the topic of religion, like what certain people believe. I don't think that's fair to say. Because
do you think it's wrong that Muhammad married a 6-year-old and raped her at 9?
Well, that's not like the point I'm taking here. Like the point I'm taking is that like it's
I'm-
not fair
I
to
know.
anybody else because like there's
But are
like,
you,
what, like,
is it
4,000
okay
people
saying
out there.
that Muhammad is evil for what he did?
I just don't think that's the root of the argument here about like morality.
I
and,
know.
like,
I'm just saying. I think you can. I think you can say if that is the case, Islam
I don't know
seems
where you're going with
false.
this. I mean, I know right and wrong. Yeah, is that if that's where you're going with this? Yes.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying. I think you seem like a rational person. I'm just saying. If a religion made a claim, let's just say that there was a religion that said, "Hey, in North America, there's a Jewish tribe who fought the Native Americans with chariots and swords in these cities that didn't exist." Would you safely say that religion's probably false? And there's no archaeological evidence for any of this stuff. It's like obviously just not true at all.
I know exactly what you're saying, but it's important to understand that not one person thinks the same as the next guy. So everyone's gonna have like different opinions and different values and different like views on morality, and everyone's got different thoughts. So like discredit like someone else's
Well,
thoughts.
I didn't bring up morality. I'm just saying, do you think that?
Well,
Do you think
okay, but, like,
Mormonism
I'm
is
saying,
true? If obviously, if you looked at the Book of Mormon and you read all the stuff, you'd be like, "This is insane. Someone just made this up." And I think it's okay to say that. Like at some point, you just can be like, "Hey, there's some things that are true. There's some things that are false. Believe
the
the
reason I
truth."
say
Things.
morality is because like you just question like, do I think it's okay to marry a 6-year-old? Obviously, no, but people do because people think differently. No one thinks the same, right? So like if someone thinks,
But like, you think that I'm sure you think grape is wrong.
I mean,
I'm-
yeah, but
I'm
that's
sure
me,
you think
not the next
grape
guy.
is wrong,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
like, do you think that it's like wrong in the fact that it's in reality it's wrong? Like, are you okay telling a 25-year-old that he can't grape a 6-year-old? I would say, yeah. If that's the case, then you're saying it's objectively wrong. Like, you're okay making the standard objective.
Okay, obviously, but like the point I'm taking here is like I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, or I can like fight for like someone else's voice about like what they believe. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously,
That's
I know what I
fine. This is what
but
this
I know
kind of channel. This is what I'm trying to do: is let people who disagree come up and hash it out with reason and logic.
No, yeah, I know. I just think it's like not really fair to like other people to say that you have the right opinion, like you have all the answers. I guess
That's fine. I mean, I don't think it's. I mean, I think it's totally fair that you come up here and say that I'm wrong. I mean, you're saying that you have you're saying that I am objectively wrong for doing this thing. You're making an opinion about me. Why can I not do the same thing?
I mean, well, like you live in America, right?
I do.
So like people have the freedom of a religion. Like people are allowed to express their own ideology and their own beliefs, and if they believe what they believe, that's the more power to them, right? Like that's not going to affect me in any way. So like me going on here and other people listening to me and being like, "Well, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, and here's the reasons why." I don't really agree with that. Is all I'm really saying.
So you don't think we should debate these things at all?
Not at all. I mean, you can question it, but to, like have a stance where like I'm right and you're wrong is like where I'm kind of like having like a, you know what I'm
But
saying?
like you, but I okay, all right. I just disagree. Like I am up here saying that grape is wrong, and I'm totally okay saying that is actually the case. That everyone who thinks it's okay is wrong, because it's okay to say on some things that are true that they are actually true. Like it's okay to do that. It's not a big deal. Like if you could, what I'm not obviously you agree with me. I'm not trying to say that you're disagreeing with me. But I'm just saying you probably agree with me on that. So you are saying it's always wrong, no matter what. So you're okay saying some things are true and some things are false. And so I'm just saying it's okay that you just disagree with me. That's fine. I'm just saying maybe engage with the arguments and stuff. And I think that's a healthy thing to do.
No, yeah.
If you want
it's
people
definitely-
to,
you definitely
you
have
want
a
people to
clear point.
respect each other and have debate, I think it's a good thing. And, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a clear point, but that is kind of like an extremity to like say like whether you like rape obviously is wrong. I mean, people just kind of believe certain things, and maybe they don't believe the Bible, or maybe they believe the Quran, or whatever. You
people
know,
change their mind based on evidence. And so I think we should be a society or culture or whatever that says, hey, let's believe true things. And I think that's a good
I
thing.
just believe in like freedom of religion and like freedom of expression, honestly.
Sure.
So
I'm totally with you, man. You are free to do what you want. I would prefer you not to violate someone else's rights while doing it. And we have a public forum. We're very blessed to have that. And so I think we should debate these ideas and win people's minds and their hearts through reason and logic. And, you know, that's a great idea. I think that's where we should do this, and not by the bloody force of the government or whatever, because that usually doesn't last. People can get swayed to opinions over time, and so that's all I'm trying to do. And I get that you don't agree with me. I'm just saying, I at least trying to bring up some rational reason for it. People in the comments probably disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm just saying, I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing. You just don't like what I'm saying, I think.
It's not like what you're saying. You're just kind of using like the extremity of like other religions to like more push your argument. I guess if that makes sense.
Well, I'm not even doing that. I'm not even like ripping on any other religions.
Marrying 6-year-olds and like raping like kids and stuff, and that's just like.
Well, I just brought that up. I just brought that up because like I thought you'd be like, yeah, that's wrong. And I'm okay saying that's wrong. I don't. If you watch my channel, I am not up here ripping other religions up. I'm up here essentially defending Christianity. That's it. So,
all right. Well, maybe we just disagree there. Agree to disagree. I'll keep watching your live though.
Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
appreciate it. If you guys are here, I try to do good faith discussions with people about pretty sensitive topics like abortion, Christianity, morality, things like that. So give me a follow. If you're a Christian, give me a follow. If not, become a Christian. But what's up, Be Easy?
Oh, what's up? Hold on, let me turn this TV down.
What are you watching, man?
The fight, boxing.
Oh, nice. You a boxing fan?
Yeah, I am.
Well, how old are you?
I'm 41.
You're 4, man. I'm 41 too. This is the third guest tonight. It's 41. So yeah, are you? So are you? What's your background? Are you an atheist? You know, where you come from?
Oh. Before I'm going to tell you that. Before I tell you that, I just want to see your reason. Like, why do you ask that question?
I'm just kind of just to get to know you. So where are you going to attack me from?
No, just
because if you're an atheist, we're usually going to have a debate about does God exist. If you're, religious, think God exists, we're probably going to have an argument about New Testament and Christianity specifically. So I'm just like curious. That's the reason why I ask.
I'm an atheist. So from a historical standpoint, I joined, and then I heard you talking about the Jesus thing, and that's what brought me up. And then I was just listening, and you were talking to the last guest about the grape thing, and I'm assuming that that you think grape is the plural. Yeah, exactly, as I do as well. But I'm just curious as to.
Do you think it's objectively immoral, though?
Do I think it's objectively immoral? No, because to the person who did the graping, it
was good.
It may not be. Yeah,
but the issue is you like who knows who's right.
Well,
under your worldview, there is no right or wrong. There is no person that was right or wrong in reality. Obviously, in your mind, you think it's abhorrent evil. But in like actual reality, the other person doing it thinks it's a very good thing. They love it. And so according to your worldview, who's right or wrong? They're both subjective experiences in someone's mind. They're not anything in reality above that.
Yeah, according to my worldview, things that are quote unquote wrong are things that cause unnecessary harm and are not detrimental to the survival of our species. And
if someone said, "Hey, I don't care about that. I love doing this," that's just their worldview. That's their preference.
Yeah, that's their worldview. That's their preference, which is yeah.
So you'd have to admit that you don't know who's true or false. It's just your opinions.
No, that is an opinion of everyone and stuff. But the graping that causes unnecessary harm. I wouldn't want to.
I get why you think it's wrong. I'm just saying that is just an opinion you have. It's not like let's try this. Do you think 2 + 2 = 4 is true?
Yeah, that's not an opinion.
but you can't really prove it. It's just based off of axioms that you can't really prove. So if I were to come to you and say, hey, 2 + 2 = 5, would you say I'm wrong?
Yeah, because we can demonstrate that you're wrong.
I mean, not really. You can't really. The mathematical arithmetic is built off of metaphysical ideas. They're not. They just physically are always represented that way. So, like my example is this: you're okay telling me you're actually objectively wrong. 2 + 2 = 4 does not equal 5. In the same vein, I say graping someone for fun is objectively wrong, just like 2 + 2 = 5 is objectively wrong. But you cannot do that. You can say 2 + 2 = 5 is wrong, but you cannot say graping a toddler for fun is wrong in the same exact way.
Okay, so let me ask you. So that's why, like, and then after this, I want to get to the Jesus thing, because yeah, we both think graping someone is. I think graping someone is worse than unaliving them, because when you grape someone, they have to live with that. That the
Sure.
victim have to live with that trauma and shame for their whole life. So
You just don't.
I'm
Again,
curious as to
you just don't think it's objectively wrong. That's all I'm trying to say. I was like, in your mind, it's like how you like. I don't know if you like coffee with your cream or with your coffee, or creamer with your coffee. You're just like, I really prefer creamer with my coffee. In the same way, it's very much, I really prefer people not do this because I think it's wrong. But that's all it is. It's just an opinion in your mind. That's it. There's nothing actual real about your opinion. And I'm disagreeing. I'm saying there is, in reality, morals that are objectively wrong.
Okay, so cool. So I'm curious as to why, you think it's wrong, but why you worship a God who don't think that that's wrong.
Grape. I mean, if you look at the Old Testament, grape was pretty condemned over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, not condemned. Your God condoned it. Your God said that he's going to do it. The God that you worship, and according to Malachi, God's word is everlasting and it doesn't change. In
Deuteronomy talks about if a man forcibly has sex with a betrothed woman, the man shall be put to death. 2 Samuel 13, 1-22, Genesis 34, Deuteronomy 22. So there's plenty of verses where God himself says this is abhorrent sin.
No, those verses that you brought up, he was talking to the Israelites and he was telling them about impeding on another man's property, as the woman were seen as property of another man. I'm referring to in 2 Samuel 12, where God told David that he's going to take his wives and give them to his neighbor so that they can lie with them in broad daylight.
Yeah. He's not saying God's the one doing it.
No, yeah, God is going to give. God is the one that's going to do them. God is going to give them to his neighbors so that they can lay with them.
God is allowing this.
What punishment? What did they do?
So be easy. I believe in free will. I believe God can use free will, free agents.
Wait.
I think.
So you think grape is a viable punishment for any type of crime?
I'm just telling you what my worldview is and how I tackle this. So I believe in free will, and you can't because you're an atheist. So I believe in free will. If that is the case, then is God actually the one doing this, or is the people that are doing it?
So God took away. So God impeded on those women's free will and gave them to his neighbor.
I believe we all have free will.
So God
we all have the ability.
God impeded
God would
on those
know.
women's
God allows things to happen.
No, not allows. God is the one who did those things. Not allow. God did those things.
God did not literally get inside of these people's minds and make them do this.
Thus
God
says the Lord.
knows
I'm
that
reading
this
this
will
verbatim.
be.
Thus says the Lord, I will raise up trouble against you from within your house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight.
And who does it? And who doesn't? Who's the one that's doing it in broad daylight?
That's great. God is taking his
Who's
wives.
the one that's doing it in broad daylight?
God is the one who took his
You read
wives.
it just a second ago. Who is the one doing it in broad daylight?
If God didn't take his wives,
Who's the one that's doing it in broad daylight?
If God didn't
Who's
take
the
his
one that's
wives over
doing
there,
it in
would
broad
the neighbor
daylight?
be allowed to lie with them?
Who's the one that's doing it in broad daylight?
If God didn't take his wives over
He
there,
is.
would the
He
neighbor be able to
is.
lie with them?
So this is the point I'm trying to make: is God
So
knows what people are going to do freely. God is
no,
not the one
God,
orchestrating
God,
this.
God,
Is
bro,
this?
God took his wives and gave them to his neighbor so that they could be great.
You don't even think this is wrong in reality. So why do you care?
I do think it's wrong. No, you
You do not.
no,
In reality,
you don't,
objectively speaking, you do not
just
care.
host. You just said that you think grape is wrong, but you worship a God who doesn't think that.
Well, I'll read these again to you. Deuteronomy 22 to 25 to 27. The man
Talking
is
about
to be
another
put to
man's
death
property.
for
We're talking
raping
about 2 Samuel.
another person.
That's
2
talking about
Samuel
another man's
13.
property. There's
Genesis
another chapter.
34.
There's
Deuteronomy
another
22
chapter.
to 30,
There's
20,
another
30,
chapter in
24.
there where it says a woman's graper has to just pay her father shekels and marry her because he violated another man's property. So now we're talking about 2 Samuel, where God
13.
told David that he's going to take his wives and give them to his neighbor so that they could be great in broad daylight.
Yeah, well, I
So
think we've already kind of
yeah,
hashed through this one. So
yeah.
I
So
get that
you're
you,
cool
in
with
your
worshiping a
mind, you
God
preference.
who
I am worshiping a God who says repeatedly that raping
condones
someone
who
is
grapes
wrong. And then
who
what did
sends women
Jesus
off to be
Christ?
great.
What did Jesus Christ and Paul have to say about this issue?
You're cool with
What
worshiping a
did
God
Jesus
who
Christ
sends
and
women
Paul have
off
to
to be
say? But what
great.
did the early Christians have to say about this issue?
Bro, no early Jesus Christ and Paul didn't exist.
All right,
So
so
okay, cool.
Jesus
So
didn't
you
exist.
so
How
okay.
do you make sense of the 27 sources we have in the New Testament, or in the
So
biographies of Jesus, Paul's letters, which have different sources in them, Philippians and Corinthians being strong ones, all the other letters, you have Marbar Serapion in the 70s talking about the Jews killing their wise king. You have Suetonius, you have Tacitus, you have Josephus. At some point, you just got to realize that you're in an insanely ridiculous position. Like, just admit
so
Jesus existed.
all right, cool. So host, you must play for the Tampa Bay Pivoneers. The way you pivoted
You
from
just said Jesus
God
didn't
condoning
exist.
yeah. So you pivoted from God
Because
condoning and
you
sending
brought
women
this
off to be
issue
great
up.
to the
Be
Jesus
easy.
thing.
You brought
Okay,
this issue up. And I
let's
said,
get
hey,
on.
what
Okay,
does
cool.
Christianity have to say about this issue? And you didn't say answer it.
Okay. So cool. So let's talk about the Jesus thing. So first off, Marbar Serapion didn't write in the 1st century; it was the 2nd century, and you're referring to that letter that he wrote
Let's
his
look it
son,
up. Let's look it
where he
up.
said,
Wait, yeah.
what advantage did the
Man,
Jews gain from worshiping their
unaliving
wise
their wise
king?
king.
And the Jews did not unalive Jesus in the story. The Romans did. The Jews unalived Marbar Serapion in the Bar Kokhba
Who
revolt.
in Acts? Who does Peter go up to and say? Real quick, be easy. Be easy. In Acts, Peter goes up to the Sanhedrin. He says, "You are responsible for this." Right?
We'll get to Acts. Hold on now. I'm
So no, he
annihilating
didn't do
the
that.
people
He
that
didn't
you
do
brought
that.
up. Okay, so now since
Wait,
you
let
want
me
to
go
hide from
look this
Marbar
one up. All
Serapion,
right, so Marbar
I took care of him.
Serapion.
Yeah, I took care of him. Yeah, Marbar Serapion. So anywho, so you want to get to Josephus? You mentioned him next. Josephus, you're referring to the Testimonium Flavianum in Antiquities of the Jews that was written in 93, Book 18, Section 3, Chapter 3. That was not written by Josephus. It was written in the 4th century by Eusebius of Caesarea, and it's a multitude of evidence of how and why we know that. So now. So Josephus never wrote about
So
Jesus.
Jesus didn't
So now let's go
exist.
into Tacitus.
Paul didn't exist.
No, yeah,
Josephus's Testimony of
no, he didn't.
Flavianum,
Yeah, he
wholesale
didn't write
made
that.
up.
Yeah, he didn't write
Marbar
that.
Serapion didn't write his letter in 73 AD.
No, he
Even
wrote in
though
the 2nd century
I
didn't mention.
just
and
Googled
it wasn't
this.
referring
I just
to
Googled
Jesus at all.
this.
He was referring to
Shortly
Simon Bar
after
Kokhba.
73 AD.
He was referring to Simon.
Okay, so 73 AD.
So first off, the Syriac letter.
Josephus, the majority position for Josephus's Testimony of Flavianum is that the actual core is the same. It might have been interpolated by Christians.
No,
and then we also have the Arabic of the Testimony of Flavianum, which is more accurately what people think he actually wrote about. Jesus is still listed. The major stuff in the testimony was still there. You should read Tom T.C. Schmidt's book, Josephus and Jesus.
No,
It's quite compelling.
that book is a laugh. No, that book is a laughing stock.
It's a
Yeah, I
laughing stock.
that
Have you
book.
read
It's
it?
a
What
laugh-
part do you
So
disagree with?
anywho,
What part do you disagree with?
Joseph. So anywho, Joseph, you're talking
What
about
part
the
of that
Aramaic
book
stuff
do you
that was
disagree with?
you're talking about the Aramaic stuff that was
What
written
part do you
centuries
disagree
later.
with?
Josephus wrote in Greek. So anywho,
What part of the T.C. Smith book do you disagree with?
let's examine the actual text.
What
of
part
Josephus.
do you disagree
No.
with?
No,
You said you read the book.
Josephus-
I'm very curious. What part do you disagree with?
Yeah, Smith's book is So let's examine Josephus'
What
actual.
you said you read the book and you thought it was
my
ridiculous. What part? I read the book.
it
I'm
is.
curious what part.
We're talking.
I'll go to it.
We're
right
talking
here.
about Josephus, bro. We're talking about
That
Josephus.
book is about Josephus.
Ah.
You should
Okay,
listen
yeah,
to his interview with
that's who we're talking about. We're not
atheists.
talking about.
You
T.C.
should
Smith.
read. You
We're
should
not
read.
talking about another Christian.
You should watch his interview with History for
No,
Atheists.
We're not talking about
Who's an
T.C.
atheist?
Smith. We're talking about
and he
Josephus.
admits that
All right,
he
cool.
makes a case that Josephus's testimonium has not been interpolated. And he makes
It
a very
isn't-
strong,
it
compelling argument
It wasn't
that it's not interpolated at all. It's
Josephus was a Jew, correct?
misinterpreted.
So Josephus was a Jew, correct?
Yep.
So as a Jew, Jews today are still waiting on their Messiah, correct?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
So that means Jews 2,000 years ago was still waiting on the Messiah.
Yeah,
They were
Josephus
still waiting on
wasn't
the
a
Messiah.
Christian,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. So as a Jew,
Josephus is
would have
just
never.
saying there's
so
these people
as-
that thought
no,
Jesus
no,
did
as a-
miraculous works.
So as a
and
Jew,
the
as
actual
a Jew
phrase
and
of
as
it
a-
might not be, hey,
So as a Jew and as a Pharisee, Josephus would have never ever called another man the Christ because he was still waiting on the Messiah. And also as a Jew, he would have
the
never ever
Christ.
called
If you
another
read
man
T-
a
you-
God.
and you remember in T.C.
the
Schmidt's
first sentence
book,
in the testimony of
I think he
Flavianum
went to Oxford.
states, but another Christian would centuries later that interpolated into Josephus' writings.
Where
There were multiple
did
church fathers in the
T.C.
second
Schmidt-
and third century who wrote about Josephus and mentioned Josephus and didn't mention the testimony of Flavianum because it's in
You
there.
should read
Mainly
his
Origin
book.
in the
You
third
should
century.
read his book. He talks
And-
about this in his book.
No, mainly Origin in the third century. In his text called Corpus Celsius, there was a response to a
Why do you
critic
why
of-
do you
of
think
Christianity.
be
And he
easy?
referred
You
to-
were talking way
Hey,
too much,
no.
dude. This isn't a sermon, buddy. Calm down. So why do you think no Christian apologists
I'm
use
talking
the
way too much.
testimonium? Why do you think no Christian apologists use the testimonium till 300 years later, 250 years later? Yale. T.C. Schmidt's got his Yale from
Host, can
Yale
you-
University.
So,
and
so, Host,
so
can you,
his
can you name
arguments for
anyone who
methodology,
refers to the testimony
style
of Flavianum
analysis.
before the first 4th century?
So what part?
Can
So
you-
his book talks about this specifically. What part in his book do you disagree with?
Can you name anyone who refers to the testimony of Flavianum before the 4th century? Because there
I
was
think
many
it's
people who referred to
Martyr. I
Josephus.
can't remember. Who Origin writes about it. I can't remember. who it is.
Origin wrote about it in Corpus Celsius, and Origin wrote that Josephus didn't believe in Jesus. And if the testimony of Flavianum was there in his writings in the 3rd century, then Origin would never have said what he said. So, Josephus didn't write about Jesus. It was an interpolation from Eusebius of Caesarea in the 4th century in his book Demonstrium Evangelicum, Purposes of the Gospels and Ecclesiastical History. He pretty much admitted he's a liar. He admitted it in his works. He said that it's a benefit to lie if it's for the advancement of those who need it, for the advancement of the church in Demonstrium Evangelicum in book 12, chapter 31. And then
Hey,
right
be
after that,
easy.
he said,
You
"Now
are
let's
just
make
preaching
mention
now,
of
brother.
Josephus too." I'm not
Be
preaching.
easy. You should
I'm just schooling.
become a Christian.
No, I'm
you should
schooling.
become a Christian and
I'm not
just be a
preaching, I'm
pastor
schooling.
because you do not shut up.
Nah, I'm schooling you. I'm schooling you. I'm
you're
putting my belt in
cooking
your
me.
ass, bro.
So
Yeah, I
if
am.
you
I'm
if
cooking
you
you with
yeah.
grease.
Okay, all right. Yeah. I can't handle it. So he said Jesus didn't exist, Paul didn't exist, Josephus didn't write the testimonium.
These heels have not been all right.
That was getting a little bit less of logic. What's up, man? How you doing?
Oh,
Hello.
Hello.
What's up, man?
Not too bad. What about you?
I'm having a good night. Just having some fun on TikTok. How old are you?
I'm 18.
You're 18. Nice, man. I'm sure you disagree with the prompt. I think that there is good evidence God exists. I think there's good evidence Christ rose from the dead. I don't know if you want to tackle one of those two things.
Yeah, sure. We could tackle one of those two things. I mean, I'll just give you my stance. I think that the most rational position in my mind is solipsism, and then I'm a pure agnostic.
You're pure agnostic.
Yep.
I figure I could probably get to what that means, but what exactly is that?
Basically, I just believe that no type of knowledge is possible to know for certain at all. So, like, normal agnosticism is you're not sure, and I just claim that you can't know whether God is real or not. So, like,
So you can know things, it's just on this topic you can't know.
no, just in general, you can't know anything.
But that's a statement about knowledge.
Yeah. And then,
So
like,
it's
I'm
kind of
saying, like,
self-referentially defeating, right? You're saying I know objectively that nobody can know objective things.
yeah, and I think that's like valid, right? Because I don't know if you've heard it, but have you heard of like the Munchausen trilemma?
Mhm.
Yeah, basically, it's a trilemma that states that when you try to justify anything, you run into one of three problems. Either A, it's you go back infinitely, right? A justifies B, B justifies C, C justifies E, so forth. You go in circles. A justifies B. Sorry, A justifies B.
It's viciously circular, yeah.
And then, or it's just dogmatic. You just have to accept it. Like you go A to B, and then you just accept B without a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but like do you not think that there's more fundamental ideas that you can believe are true? Like, can't you think that the law of non-contradiction is more fundamental than solipsism?
Well, I think that like solipsism is the only thing. I mean, I guess you can know your mind exists, but that's about it. Anything else is kind of you have to kind of either just accept that you want to know.
But you know your mind exists, but you know your mind doesn't exist and not exist at the exact same time, right?
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. You know you're thinking. I should rephrase. You know you're thinking. Well, there is thinking occurring is all that an agent can know. Anything else is unwarranted of an agent to actually know.
But again, so do you think that it's everything else you know is warranted? But it could be also true at the exact same time. It's not warranted at the exact same time. Can it be true and false at the exact same time, no matter what belief you throw up at me?
It could. I'd be sure that if you wanted to take like pure consistent view, that's fine.
No, I mean, yeah, but do you really think that solipsism can be true and false at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that personally, but I think there's no problem with that type of thing happening, right?
But that's a tough. Like you're saying, yeah, what I believe is 100% rational, but what I believe is like a square circle. It's not true at all. That seems to be illogical.
Well, I mean, I don't think like what do you mean by rational in this sense?
Like what do I mean by? I think the law of non-contradiction is more fundamental than your view of solipsism. So I'm thinking you can know the laws of logic are more a priori true than your belief that solipsism is true. And if that is the case, then you have to say the logical realism, that the laws of logic are actually real, are more fundamental than your mental states.
No, well, actually, I don't again, bringing back the Munchausen trilemma, I don't even think that's warranted, right? Because when we say the laws of logic, all we're saying is that when I observe, when I look at reality,
first principles. I can't deny. I'm not going to deny. I can't prove it. I just have to assume they're true because the negation of them leads to literally the words coming out of your mouth could be true and false at the same time.
Yeah,
and that makes no sense. You can't have a rational discussion if the law of non-contradiction is not true.
I mean, that assumes that the only thing you think can be rational is a classical system of logic, right? What I'm saying is that when we evaluate these, the most fundamental view that you can have is that there is thinking occurring within an agent, right? In this case, you're the agent, so you can say there is thinking occurring. From that view, you can build on whatever axioms you want to get to these assertions, right? The reason I say this is the most rational is to say that you know anything or that you think these sorts of claims are to be superior or more rational to others just seems to lead you into how do you actually know that, believe it, or justify it, right? So when you say these positions of I believe this is more rational, you have to first make the pre-assumption that everyone's going to follow under your criterion, right? Like,
But how do you
don't
prove that you?
Hold on.
How do you prove to me that you exist?
That's the thing. You can't. I mean, I don't. I mean, I could say like idea is thinking occurring. There's ways of doing it. I think, therefore I am. Right. But obviously, if you want to deny that, I can't stop you. I'm just saying that, given these views, right? The reason you saying accepting my criterion would be more rational. It's just in itself an illogical statement, right? Why should I accept your criterion if I'm a non-classical logician?
Yeah,
And
I guess we're moving the argument to I think you should be a classical logician because I can't for the life of me believe that you could be rational and think what I'm saying is true and what I'm saying is false at the same time. If that's what you really believe, then I don't know why we should have a conversation.
I mean, I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying that like those types of positions don't hold any like counter arguments that lead into any problems of why my view isn't rational compared to yours. I'm saying that even
But
if I
if you're
was
thinking your view is rational and not rational at the same time, I feel like I'm perfectly okay just dismissing it.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it. Look, I'm not. For this conversation, I'm always a classical logician, right? But all I'm saying is that given these sorts of knowledge or things that we can know, right, it seems that saying for confident that anything is unrational in itself.
All right, that's what I would think, yeah. Because I think in order to have this discussion, the concepts you're saying have to have some type of meaning, consistent meaning, and their negations can't be true and false at the same time. So to even have like a coherent conversation with you, I need the law of identity, I need the law of non-contradiction to actually uphold. And they seem like they do.
They do. Yeah, they do. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you believe in the laws of logic, even though you can't prove it.
Yeah, that's fine. I think for this conversation, those axioms are necessary things that we have to have a good faith. Yeah, that's fine. I think for this conversation, those axioms are necessary things that we have to have a good faith conversation.
Okay, but if that's the case, then why not just say those seem to be necessarily true all the time? There is no possible world in which.
Again, there is. I mean, even if I were to say that's the case, I don't think that would like invalidate my point. Like if I were to say that,
I think you would have to just say that the laws of logic and necessary truths are something you could believe in, even despite your solipsism. Like it would make solipsism not true, or you believe in things outside of just you existing. So then, I guess I don't know solipsism super well, but if that is the case, then it seems like solipsism is false. Because you can know that the law of non-contradiction is true.
Just let me say, so solipsism, just clarify, right? Solipsism basically said that you cannot justify anything outside or like know this, right? My belief and knowing are two separate things. So I believe in the law of contradiction and that the physical world actually exists, right?
Okay.
But my solipsism is independent from that. It's kind of like solipsism is just kind of a way to go with fallibilism, if you know what that is.
What do you say with fallibilism? Like the idea you like the things you believe are provisional, they could be wrong.
Fallibilism is this view that says that even if knowledge you can't 100% know anything, you can still have these beliefs and think they are true. It's basically just like.
I mean, I feel like we're talking the same language. I mean, I think I can't prove 1,000%. I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense. I can't like know for certain the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction are always true. I kind of just have to reason and make the best inference of the data. So I think if me and you are on the same page, then I think that there is no possible world in which the law of non-contradiction cannot be violated or can be violated. And if you agree with me, then I don't know if you're familiar with like modal logic, like different ideas of different ways things could be. If there is a world of no material stuff and the law of non-contradiction is still true, then you would have to believe that these are metaphysically true. Necessarily so all the time, no matter what.
I mean, sure. I don't necessarily.
So then you're kind of going from you're going into Platonism. You essentially believe that like there are an infinite amount of abstract objects that exist, regardless of if I exist or you exist. And I would say,
I mean, sorry, I didn't quite understand. No, I do. I don't believe that like Asus is like anything. I don't believe that you can actually have anything existing outside of the mind. That's kind of like the middle ontological view I hold to.
okay. Do you think the law of non-contradiction is only true inside your mind?
Only true if there is agents to observe it.
Okay, so before human brains evolved, the law of non-contradiction was not true.
No, before humans evolved, there was nothing.
Was the concept true?
Nothing. There was nothing. Like pure, unfiltered. And
there was still stuff. So you don't, but you like literally don't think like anything physical existed before. I mean, I'm sure I'm like not making I'm butchering what you actually believe, but I'm curious. Do you believe like the sun existed before human brains evolved?
No, let me quickly explain, right? So when I say like nothing, I'm saying that for anything to have some sort of existence, right? You have to, a mind has to be there to observe it, right? Because just a simple analogy, can you think of a world where no brains exist?
Sure.
Or like no agent? Right, you can't. So to say that something existed before the agent,
I can think of a world. Yeah.
But then you presupposed your own mind into that world.
Like a third person perspective of that world. I can imagine a world where there is no physical stuff at all.
Right, but then so basically all you're saying is you think that thoughts don't require thought is an independent concept from the thinker. So right, so like you think, so in a sense you think that a thought is not contingent upon a thinker.
Hey, you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. So do you think that a thought and a thinker
needs a thinker?
Independent.
Yeah, I think you're right. A proposition needs a mind.
Well, I'm asking. Yeah, you think that, right? I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Well, it seems that we can. So a counterexample to give to why a thinker doesn't need a mind, right, is simply that under like these types of views of native realism and classical logic, right?
Hey, you're hard to hear.
There doesn't seem to be any not P, or there doesn't seem to be like any contradictions in believing this, right? So like
a mental state without a mind.
No, a mind without a mental state, other way around.
A mind without a mental state. What would make it a mind?
What would make it a mind? Being a rational. When I say mind,
a rational
agent.
Yeah, in order to be a rational agent, don't you have to have some mental experience? LARPer or less logic LARPer. Like I feel like you are like so close to being a theist. I think you like you're kind of dancing around it, but like you think everything is mental. And so like you're saying these propositions have to exist in mental capacity, and I'm assuming you think that just happens when humans' brains evolved. But like I'm going to say that propositions like the sun existed before human brains evolved is true. If all propositions need a mind to ground them, I think that God would be the clearest example of these things are true before human brains evolved. If all these propositions need minds, I would say that they are grounded in a mind. And I would throw that in with the laws of logic and necessary truths like mathematics are necessarily abstract propositions. Those would need a necessary mind to ground them in.
I mean, I guess before we continue, right? Just to make it a bit more clear, what would, if I were like to be an atheist, what would be your argument for why God exists? This will help us like help.
Yeah, I think so. I would say that I would ask an atheist, do you think the law of non-contradiction is true in all possible worlds? And they would say yes. And I would say even in the possible world where there's no physical stuff, where the universe just didn't exist, they would say usually they don't like that question because they think it's impossible. That seems stupid though. It's obviously logically possible. And so if they're admitting the law of non-contradiction is true in that possible world, then they're admitting that there is ontologically true propositions that exist external from just pure contingent physical stuff. And if that is the case, then they are Platonists. And then I have to say, okay, why is there an infinite amount of these relational semantic things, propositions, abstract, that all seem to have mental properties? They would need some type of grounding and something necessary that's mental, and I would call that God.
Okay, so this is kind of like tag combined with a cosmological argument.
I mean, it's just an idea of philosophy of mind and the modal landscape of laws of logic.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That kind of helps me. Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I think that when you say this, right, I guess my response would be is just that the reason I'm close to a theist is that I think that for God to have any like sort of reason for an agent to believe it over another reason is to have truth, right? God has to be like the pinnacle of absolute truth, right? Everything he says, knows, designs, or does is absolutely true in some way, right?
Yeah, I think I would say God knows all true propositions.
Yeah. So then I think the reason I'm not an atheist from there is that I don't think that absolute truth can even exist in any possible world. So I think that that's.
But you believe that you exist.
I think
you believe you exist. That's true in a possible world. It's true in this world.
It's not absolutely true. It could be false.
So you don't believe, you literally don't believe anything is actually true. Like, I think we're just kind of spinning back around to where we were a second ago. Like, you seems like you really do think the law of non-contradiction is true in all possible worlds. If that is the case, then you're saying it's necessarily true. You can't really believe something any more than that. Like, that is like primary core beliefs. And I get that you can't prove it. It's kind of just a leap in logic. Like, it's the strongest inference. I think it's the most likely. I don't know how you would deny it. To deny it is you're using it to deny it. So like it is self-referentially has to be true.
Well, in literature, right, there's this concept that there's this concept in the literature called I've talked about before, fallibilism, right? That has an absolute higher order of value than necessary truth, right? Absolute truth, like objective level things that you cannot deny no matter what you say, right? Like you could potentially law of non-contradiction is contingent. My mind is contingent. Everything in itself is
like that's brutal, man. I don't know how you would say that that's contingent. It could be different.
Yeah, everything could be different.
But like, you really think the law of identity could be different? Like something could equal a bunny rabbit. Like this paperclip could be negative infinity. Like that, like to believe, I don't like if you think it's contingent, then why would I believe anything you're saying? How does it have any type of coherent, rational thought to it? Like it seems like it has to be true.
That's where we get into fallibilism. That's where we get into fallibilism, right?
I mean, this is tough one, man. I don't know how you jive this with.
I'll quickly explain because I feel like we're not going anywhere. Like, and I want to let you get to other people. I'll quickly say, like, the fallibilism just says that even if we can't notice, we can have these priorities that allow us to raise the credence of these propositions A over B. And given that we have more empirical evidence supporting from literature that that it's better to know you can't know nothing rather than something. I think it's more rational to say that that any proposition would be more false than just believing that you exist. But I mean, it was a nice discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming up, man.
Yeah, well, you have a good day.
Yeah, you too, man. Appreciate it. I always like those kind of discussions. Geek out. I'm sure nobody likes to listen to it, but that was good. It was a good discussion. I am seeking up people who are atheists or have a beef with the prompt. I do think Christianity is the most rational position, given that I think God exists. I think the New Testament is pretty reliable as a document, and I think that the evidence points to Jesus Christ rising from the dead. So if you disagree, feel free to come on up. I think the definition of God I would believe in is a necessary, cannot fail to exist, conscious mind that created everything contingent. And not only that, actually cares about you, actually loves you, and grounds all morality in his nature, and ultimately showcased that on the cross 2,000 years ago. Because that means that the sin that you have done to others, it needs infinite justice. When you've harmed other people, you have caused infinite injustice. And so therefore, Jesus, being the infinite God, took your place because he loves you. That's why Christianity is so mind-blowing. I constantly am like, how is this true? This makes no sense. How is it that God exists? God is this mind-blowing thing I can't wrap my mind around. It actually cares about me, actually loves me in this vast ocean of the universe. But yeah, here I am having this discussion. If you want to come up and debate me, you are welcome to, because it is boring to hear me monologue. My channel is Make the Case. I try to have reasonable discussions with people on pretty conscientious topics. Think about doing an abortion one. Nobody comes up, I might go to do a pro-life one. It always gets the crazies. I feel like TikTok likes just people arguing with each other, because then the comments start flying, and the algorithm loves that. And I feel like a lot of times atheists I talk to, they're actually pretty reasonable, and so we don't really get up fighting with each other, which is a good thing. What's up, Speed Buggy?
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man? How old are you?
60.
60?
Yeah, getting up there.
You sound like you're like 20. Well done, man. Get some good pipes.
Smoke, don't drink. Play a lot of games. So I stay young.
Congrats, man. Nice. What's up, man? I'm sure you disagree with me. What do you want to... I think the evidence God exists, and I think Christianity is true. So,
well, there's no evidence. I mean, you might have some philosophical arguments, but there's no evidence for them.
So when I say evidence, I mean something that raises the probability of something being true.
Right. And I think that the probability is that Christian God absolutely cannot exist. It's mythological. Jesus is myth. He didn't exist in reality either.
Did Paul
and
exist?
I've got good evidence for this. Paul isn't a real name. It's a diminutive. It means a small one. So they changed it to Saul in Acts, which was written in the late 2nd century, because Paul wasn't really a real name. I don't know who Paul was. If you read the story of Acts, the Acts seminar basically says Acts is fictional, just to make up stuff about Paul.
Did Peter exist?
Don't know if Peter existed, but the stories about him are false.
What about James, the brother of Jesus? Did he exist?
No, I don't think Jesus existed. James and Jesus were made-up characters in the 2nd century when they started developing this new theology.
Did Pontius Pilate exist?
Apparently, he's mentioned by multiple historians, and there's actually some archaeological evidence that he existed.
So if someone's mentioned by other people, that probably means they existed.
No.
Okay. So how do we know Pontius Pilate existed?
Well, there's archaeological evidence that kind of supports
So
this case.
If people mention James, the brother of Jesus, existing, and then we have an ossuary that says James, the brother of Jesus, son of Mary and Joseph, dated to this 1st century, why would you not think James existed?
No, that's not dated.
I mean, it's contested, but it's an ossuary.
It's not.
It's not an ossuary. Okay. From what I remember, it is an ossuary.
It's the 1st century. I know. I'm saying it's not dated to the 1st century. All that stuff's made up way after the fact.
You're coming up with some wild stuff right now. So Luke was written in the 2nd century.
Luke, yes. All of the New Testament was written in the 2nd century.
All right, let's see here. James Ossuary is dated by typology to the 1st century CE. Typical Jewish secondary burial practice of the Second Temple Jewish period. Ossuary use in Jerusalem was essentially confined to 20 BC to 70 AD. Archaeologist Kloner dated the ossuary specifically between 45 to 70 AD. So I don't think
there's no issue with a place being dated to a certain age. The question is there's no evidence that that's James, that was brother Jesus. That
when
you no evidence at all.
I mean, it seems like it could be evidence when it says the brother of Jesus, the son of Mary and Joseph.
Yeah,
right?
Well, that's
would that not like kind of real quick? If that was actually the body of James, what would you expect to see on his ossuary?
I'd have to look at it. I can't remember that, but I'm pretty sure this is something that's done way after the fact. This isn't 1st century writings on this stuff. The ossuary, whatever itself, it was probably there a long time. But the inscription that you're saying, James, brother Jesus, the son of Mary and Joseph, no, that was not there.
Yeah, I missed that. James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus.
So you have to
I would say that's a piece of evidence that would make me feel like that James actually existed. If you have Josephus mentioning James existing, if you have Acts mentioning James existed, if you have a letter from people that thought James existed, like at some point, if you're going to say Pontius Pilate existed because we have people talking about him and you have archaeological evidence, like, why would you just not think these people existed? This is like flat earth stuff you're coming at me with. Do you think the earth is round?
It's a sphere.
Okay. Just check it. Because if you were, do you admit that if you, I know you know that this position is fringe, right?
Sorry? Say that again.
Like, do you realize your position is like crazy fringe? Like, if you were to go to like any,
there's plenty
if you were
of
to go to
scholars.
any, like almost any,
There's plenty of scholars.
history
scholars.
department there. Sorry, let me say this: if you went to a history department at almost every single college and say did Jesus exist? What do you think they're going to say?
There are plenty of scholars that don't believe Jesus existed.
What do you think 99% of historians would say?
No, not 99%. There's no actual evidence of his existence. And this James thing is a contested inscription. So
it's not contested of who's Josephus talking about when he says James, the brother of the Christ.
There were plenty of Jesuses that were Christ. There was a Jesus in the 1st century that had a brother named James that was a Christ.
The brother of the Christ. When he just mentions earlier, Jesus, who was called the Christ, was executed under Pontius Pilate. It seems like they're talking about the same dude that they were talking about in the New Testament.
About Tacitus now?
No, Josephus, the Testimonium Flavianum.
The Testimonium Flavianum is a forgery by a 4th century Christian, Eusebius. There's
and
plenty
you
of
guys
evidence
have all the same script. So I would
There's
encourage
plenty of
you
evidence for that.
You should listen to Atheists or History for Atheists. Listen to Tom T.C. Schmidt. He wrote a book. He's from Yale. He's not dumb.
I've seen
this.
So much stuff from both sides. I've seen so much stuff from both sides.
This is an atheist historian who invites him on. T.C. Schmidt. At the end of it, the historian's like, you made a good case. I believe this. He thinks it's authentic language. We just misinterpret it. There's a reason why for 300 years or 200, real quick, let me just lay my plane. There's a reason why for 250 years, no Christian ever used this as a defense for Jesus Christ when they were being attacked by Celsus and other people. They could have easily just said, hey, look at the testimonium, but they didn't. They didn't ever use it. And T.C. Schmidt's point is because the language that's in the testimonium is not flattering to Christianity. And he actually gives you.
That is not the criteria of embarrassment. Is a bad argument. It's a hugely bad argument.
This is not criteria of embarrassment.
People can make up criteria of embarrassment just for the benefit of trying to make it look like it's not something they would make up.
You think that in the first century, these disciples were like, "Hey, in the 1800 years, they're going to come up with this idea called the criteria of embarrassment. Let's try to trick them 1800 years from now, dude." I can have rational discussions. So Peter didn't exist. Paul, all the 12 disciples didn't exist. Like
no evidence of them. No evidence whatsoever.
No, zero evidence outside of. I just gave you Josephus.
Let me present my.
Josephus is not a dude. I can't. You just came up here and just said, "I believe in the flat Earth." Not only the Earth is flat, the sun is flat, the whole entire solar system is flat. Like, you just made a ton of insanely ridiculous claims.
What'd you say about the flat Earth?
Like, you said Jesus didn't exist. I'm saying that's like the flat Earth of history.
No.
And then now you're saying
it really
is. It really is.
You want to know why?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's no
name your
evidence.
3 scholars that believe in it.
There's no evidence. I don't appeal to scholarship.
This is
I look
definitely
at the
true.
actual evidence.
This is definitely
here's the
facts.
Evidence we have. There are plenty of scholars. I can tell you that. There's like 50 scholars that are mythicists that I could name, that I could go to the website and shoot off to you. So, but I don't want to worry about that.
Do any of them actually teach anywhere? Like, do any research anywhere? Because I know maybe 4 or 5.
So we
and
know
they're
the
laughed at. They're literally laughed at.
An interpolation by later Christians. We know that
we don't know that.
Talks about.
We don't know that. Are you familiar with the Arabic? Are you familiar with the Arabic testimony of Flavianum?
There's nothing earlier than like the 10th century.
Are you familiar with the Arabic version? That was a different line transmission family.
There's nothing earlier than the version that Eusebius quotes.
You're not familiar with it. So in that Arabic translation of it, there is the core that's still there. That's why almost all scholars will say Christians may have interpolated parts of it, but the core is the same. You can say no all you want.
Let me
go
write
to
that down.
Google and type it in.
Yes.
The Arabic translation.
Translation of Testimony of Flavianum.
Yeah.
Of testimony. You say it was before Eusebius? Is what you're saying?
No, I didn't say it's before Eusebius. I didn't say it's written before Eusebius. I'm saying it's a different transmission line.
Well, so was the translation done before Eusebius?
Transmission line. It's a different family of manuscripts it comes from. And it says pretty much the exact same thing. Yeah, look into it. Read T.C. Schmidt's book. Look into it, because you're saying a bunch of insanely stupid stuff.
I can't imagine that it's anywhere, that it was written anywhere in the 2nd century. It's probably later. This Arabic translation.
I'm admitting it's later. Yeah, I'm admitting it's later.
Okay. So then
I'm just telling you why the people that actually study this. There's no credibility
towards.
Okay. Do you think? Let's just go down the list. So Jesus didn't exist. Peter didn't exist. Paul didn't exist. All the 12 disciples completely made up. How is it that these? So you probably wouldn't even believe in this, but like, how is it that we know late 2nd century forgeries? They don't get their names right.
Here's how we know they don't exist.
They don't get their archaeology
They're made up
right.
Characters.
How? Yeah,
they're made up characters. So you've got all kinds of supernatural claims about all these people, which throw those all out. Let's look at what's natural about them. The birth narratives, all contradictory. The ministry narratives, all contradictory. Any of the natural stories about Jesus are written by a bunch of people, and they're all contradictory. Then we have no evidence of any of these stories until after 144 CE.
Dude, when do you think P52 was discovered?
It's it's dated to 200.
No, it is not.
Yes,
Let me just look this one up.
Look at the John Ryland's library. It goes all the way up to 200, which is the first year of the 3rd century.
Papyrologist date P52. So you're saying
And it
200.
and really doesn't matter. It's so old. It's so late. It doesn't even matter. It's way past the mid-second.
Oh, here we go. P52 is commonly dated to approximately 100 to 125 by most experts. So you are literally just pulling stuff straight out of your ass and just saying it.
All right, dude. Go look at the John
You
Ryland
said,
Library.
I don't care what one dude says.
John
Are
Ryland's.
you a hydrologist?
No, it's held at the John Ryland's Library. Look
Okay,
it up.
I just
You're
read
lying
to
right now.
Here,
okay?
I'll
Don't-
go.
don't-
I'm lying.
don't lie.
I wish I could screenshot this. Here, let me go to a different one. Where do you want me to go look? Can I just go
Where
to
it's
Google?
being held. Where it
Let's
is
go to
being held.
google.com.
John Ryland's Library.
When do scholars date P52? When do scholars date P52? I'll try a different search engine since I'm lying. To the first half of the 2nd century, 125 to 150 AD. Let's try a different website. Let's try a different website. Let's go to ChatGPT. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. When do scholars date P52? 125 to 150 AD, 125 to 175 AD.
Yeah. And at the John Ryland's Library, if you go to their website.
So let's try a different one. I'll do Claude next. Let's do Claude. P52 is up 100 to 125 CE. So I just gave you 4 sources that disagree with you, unless you think they're all hijacked by right-wing Christian nut jobs. I think it's safe to say that you're wrong. Just admit you're wrong.
Hold on. I'm going to give you the John Ryland's website, and you'll see what I'm saying. It goes all the way to 200.
I can't do this.
All right. Oh, you're
search
scared.
of God is
Don't
real.
get scared. Come on. Don't get scared.
Brother, I just searched this 4 times.
You said I'm not lying.
Speed.
Well, you're not looking at
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with you that maybe you might find one person or whatever. I'm just telling you that the people that actually study this do you study manuscript dating? Do you study manuscript dating?
Do I just study the dating? No.
Okay. So do you think on this one it might be safe to just play it with what the people who do this for a living say?
And that's what I'm trying to get to you. The source has it at.
So when I say when do most scholars date this, and it's pretty much 100 to 150 is what I'm saying, what I'm seeing. That's what I've always heard. Usually they just date around 125 AD. And if John is a P52 is a clip of John in Alexandria, that means its copying has to be earlier than 125 AD. If John is after the Synoptics, that means the Synoptics have to be earlier than 125 AD. Almost every, I know you don't believe Paul existed.
No, that's the earliest possible date, though. I'm saying that.
No, I just said 100.
In the 130s and later.
This is what Claude says. The dating has narrowed from a confident consensus into a genuine live debate. P52 is commonly dated to approximately 100 to 125 CE by most experts. All right, man. We could do this Google stuff back and forth all night. I feel like you don't care about the truth.
Century. No, it's middle 2nd century, but John Ryland's library has it dated to as late as 200.
Cool.
Okay, so irregardless.
Cool. So you have John written in the middle of 2nd century. So it has to be before that.
So the writings first show up historically as 144, so they had to be written sometime prior to that.
Was it 144? I thought you said middle. Is that when you're taking P52 to exist?
No, P52 is somewhere between 125 and 200 is where I'm gonna put it.
Okay, so if it's 150, then it's before that. The Synoptics are before that. There's a reason why almost most scholars date these two within the late 1st century.
At this website.
Yeah. Hey, Speed, I appreciate you coming up, man.
So,
I would
hold on,
really,
I didn't even get into half of the stuff, man, because you're lost on this stuff. So
I am so blown
so
away.
Jesus-
You made a
so-
claim, and I just
listen,
proved it to you 4 different sites that you're wrong.
Josephus talks about Joseph and James, and Christians say, "Oh, they're talking about Jesus in the Bible," but it's not Jesus in the Bible. It's Jesus and James, who has a brother named James. They were in the middle of the 1st century that were sons of Damnius, and the Christians think that's Jesus in the Bible. It's not.
Oh,
It's
is
Christianity
life
is like
is
making up
life
stuff.
with you, Speed? You must think everything is a conspiracy theory. This is crazy.
Well, Christianity is the biggest fraud ever perpetrated on mankind.
Hey, man, I
Absolutely.
appreciate you coming up another time. I appreciate you coming up, man.
Yeah, you're right.
I can't do the mythicist stuff, because if you're going to accept mythicism, I'm not talking to a rational person.
Oh,
What's up, man? How you doing?
not too bad. How about you?
I'm good, man. I'm having a chilled night. You over 18?
Yeah, I'm 27. So
Nice. Okay. Well, my channels make the case. I think Christianity is true because I think God is real. I think this is the evidence points. And I think Christianity is true because I think Christ rose from the dead. So I don't know if you have a contention with one of those or something I said earlier. You're welcome to go for it.
okay. So by Christianity, you mean the belief in Jesus Christ, right? That he
Mostly that he's God and died for us and rose from the dead, and you put your trust in him. Yeah.
okay. And so that would mean you believe in the entirety of the Greek Bible?
The
Which would be the New
entirety of the
Testament?
Greek. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reliable document. Yeah, collection of biographies and letters and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, so rational. That means by logic and reason, that you find it to be the most logical and reasonable
Yeah.
thing. But do you mean apart from atheism and stuff like that?
No,
For the most part?
including what we know about reality. I think God exists, and it's the most rational position to believe God exists and to believe all the evidence we have of around the New Testament and what we know about, archaeology from the time period, whatnot. I think the most logical inference is Christ rose from the dead. If God exists, Christ rose from the dead, then Christianity is true.
How can we make that though? That like it's kind of a leap almost, right? Because I could write a book myself and say, when I die, I will rise up from the dead, and then I could have my best friend say, yeah, he totally rose from the dead after he died, right? And it seems like the only thing we really get is like from the Bible itself. It says that this man was, brought back to life, became a spirit creature. And also, like, there was an earthquake, there was a solar eclipse on the day that
We have
that
evidence
happened.
there was an earthquake.
That day.
Well, we can't really get that precise, but definitely one in around that time period.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's earthquakes always going on, right? Like,
No, I don't think in Judea. I don't think it's that common. But go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm just
Yeah.
saying you threw out a claim. I'm just like, it's actually not entirely true. I'm not saying I would use that in a court of law, but I'm just saying there is evidence of an earthquake around the time
Yeah,
of
I'm
Jesus. There's also evidence
just
that the
thinking
sun was blotted out too.
by like a solar eclipse or something like that.
Something I can't remember. I won't want to talk about it, but there is a chain of very interesting ancient texts, or I don't know what you'd call it, from Africanus, I believe is his name, and he's quoting someone else. So it's kind of an odd ancient historical thing where you have to kind of go off a couple people, but there is a pretty interesting argument that there was something that happened that day that was an eclipse or something.
And then, I guess with the early writings, I have a hard time with them. Like, Josephus. Have you read some of his works?
No, I haven't actually read any of his works. I'm familiar.
Probably some of the stuff where he referenced Jesus and everything.
Am I familiar with the testimonium and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of those times, it was actually added later. In his
Interpolated
text.
by later Christian scribes. That's kind of the theory. Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, Josephus says that Jesus was a part of the Trinity, God, Him, and the Holy Spirit, and it's like Josephus was a
Does he
Pharisee.
say that? And does he say that
Yeah,
in the testimony?
hmm yeah, and most scribes consider that to be obviously added later, um, and so yeah, that was Josephus. You can look it up later. I can
Yeah,
too, just to
I
make sure I
didn't
was correct.
know he talked about it that in depth. It's been a while since I've read the testimonium section, but I know. Yeah, whatever. Good.
Yeah, so basically, I guess in the end, this is what I'm getting at. Logically, I can breathe this air, right? I can go over to the water by a lake, touch it, and realize it's wet, or however you want to say it. Um, and I can see a sunrise. But God deliberately makes himself invisible. He decides to not talk to anybody in the modern day. And there's no real apparent reason for it. Like he talked to the people in the Bible all the time. And then now, modern day, why is it such like why is he hiding himself if he wants everyone to become his friend? Right? It just doesn't seem
If
like it makes
God
sense to
were
me.
to come, if it was like obvious God existed, would you become a Christian?
Yeah,
You would.
absolutely.
You would give your life to
Mhm.
Jesus Christ.
If he gave, if he showed up and said, "I am Jesus Christ," I mean, obviously, like you run into that thing where in the Bible it says, Satan represents himself as an angel of light, so you'd have to make sure it's not like some kind of evil spirit or something like that making you wanna, you know what I mean? But
So, like,
so yeah,
if you knew God existed and Jesus rose from the dead, you would be a Christian.
I believe the vast majority of humanity would too. Yes.
So, okay, I disagree. I would say a lot of people could study this and come to that conclusion, and a lot of people just don't care. I've talked to
I
people
think
about that.
I think a lot of people that become atheists over the years is because there's a lot of people who were religious before they became atheists. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's probably most of the atheists on TikTok.
Yeah, and it's usually like the younger atheists become Christians eventually, and it's because they were never really raised with it or something like that. I'm not going to
Yeah,
say that that's
it could
100% of the
flow.
time.
Yeah, I don't know the psychology or sociology on that one, but they probably
Sure.
flow all sorts of ways. It doesn't really matter though. It's like what's true seems to be
Well,
my
here was my
environment doesn't dictate what's true or not.
well, here was my point with it was like for example, I grew up religious, and I felt like I was very close to God when I was younger. And then I think one day just it hit me where I was like, I actually don't know if this guy's real, this person that I'm praying to. He's given me no, what do you call that? Confirmation that he himself is alive or even cares about me whatsoever. We can read in the Bible where it says that he cares for you, but it's almost like a letter from someone saying they love you, but you don't even know if they're still alive. You know, it's it's weird like that. So, and
I mean,
also
I
it
get
was
it.
written.
I mean, I get it. Like, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I guess I have a different perspective as someone who was an atheist and then became a Christian. Like,
Yeah. What's your perspective?
I am just like, I have the other way around. I'm like, oh, this seems obviously true. Like, not, I mean, I would say obviously, but I would say it seems like it's the most rational position. That's my prompt. But like, I mean, like, to me, emotionally speaking, it's like when I'm praying, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, does God exist? Is this like, this seems like it's my emotions are like, this is crazy. But then I'm like, every time I end up looking at it as rationally as I can, I'm like, God exists, and then I want to worship him. So like, I feel like it's a catch-22. I get that this is a crazy claim, that this defies naturalism, but I don't think naturalism is true. And I think that evidence for resurrection is quite strong. And so that's where I'm
Do you mean
at,
like
you know.
I just don't understand. Like, I don't get how, because like, are you talking about the Shroud of Turin?
No.
That whole thing? Like, where's the evidence that he rose? I just don't get that.
Sure. So I would say the Gospels are actually biographies. That's their more technical definition or genre. They talk about real people. And there's multiple sources within each biography of Jesus that extrapolate back pretty early. I think that they are connected to eyewitnesses. I think if we look at that as objectively as we can, I would say that it's pretty obvious they're connected to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if that is the case, these are within a lifetime of eyewitnesses of Jesus. We have multiple independent people against all psychology we know of human psychology saying they literally saw Jesus alive after he was dead. Went on to declare it in a pretty hostile environment. And yeah, it isn't just one or two, it's multiple people. You have multiple creeds coming out within. The creeds are like formal sayings that Jewish people would do, saying Jesus actually rose from the dead. And then you have conversions of skeptics, James, the brother of Jesus, and Paul. So I just think there's a lot of evidence that says, okay, he is real dude, was executed, buried in a tomb. The tomb was empty. And then you have all of this like craziness happening against what human nature, we would think human nature acts. And so I'm just saying just how we could look at fossils and genetic code and say evolution is probably true. We could look at this and say, what's the best inference? Jesus rose from the dead.
Okay. Well, another claim made in, I think it was John. I could be wrong about this. But it says that the earthquake shook the gravestones.
Matthew.
Is it Matthew? And they went into the city and declared Jesus, right? Was king or something like that.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about what I just said, it has nothing to do with the Bible being inerrant. So like I'm just saying everything that I just gave you, I could give you a rational argument for them being true.
So are you saying that story
like,
isn't true?
I have no clue if it's true or not. I'm just saying that's the case that I'm making tonight, is that I that story, if you told me that was hyperbole or, you know, apocalyptic literature, I would be like, cool. This has nothing to do with my belief in Christianity being true.
Okay. Well, that's your feelings, right? But like, how can you make a argument for rationality if the very book you're using to define?
Because we look at, there's a lot of biographies, you know, histories in that time period that if you strip out all the supernatural elements, there's a lot of like core facts that are there that even if they disagree with each other, they could still like, oh, Caesar was assassinated by the Senate. Like I'm saying, if you apply that exact same standards to the Gospels, you have a lot of evidence that comes out. And then I'm saying, if you look at what's the most rational inference of all this evidence is that Jesus rose from the dead. And if that's the case, then I have a strong belief that these are actually real, reliable documents.
Well, yeah, it's just I guess it's tough for me to. It's like you can't really have it both ways, right? Where it's like it's a rational document.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a reliable document. It's a reliable document. That's all I'm trying to say. I didn't mean to say rational. It's a reliable document. I mean, these are reliable histories. If you look at them, they get naming patterns more correct than Josephus does. They get archaeology right. The Roman official titles in a sea of Roman, you know, senates and whatnot changing constantly. They get all these types of titles right, distances to ports right, names of other people right, you know, events that are happening in that time period right. Like, it seems as though these are connected to early eyewitnesses. And if that's the case, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John actually wrote them, and then you have that's just like the reliable piece of it. If you have what even skeptical scholars admit about Jesus, that he was a real person, executed, buried in a tomb was empty, people see him alive, conversions of Paul and James. I think at some point you're like, okay, what's the most logical inference of all this evidence? If God does not exist, then you have to come up with some kind of naturalistic proposition. If you do, I think you're stuck coming up with a lot of convoluted, weird theories that you stack on top of each other, and Occam's razor goes bye-bye. And I don't like that.
I know what you're saying, but I feel like you get the same thing with God too, where it's like you come up with not you, but like Christians or other religious folk come up with theories on like where we see evidence of evolution. We can see in our past that Neanderthals were part of the human genome, and it's like that doesn't add up with the 6,000 year estimate of
Sure,
humans.
I'm not saying you don't have to be a Christian and believe in young Earth creationism.
No, but you see what I'm saying, where it's like you kind of
I disagree with those Christians.
with God too.
And I don't think so. I mean, I think there's plenty of good arguments that God exists. And then if Jesus rose from the dead, then Christianity is true. Then it kind of helps fill out like the rest of the story, you know? Like that's just kind of where I'm coming at on this. So
If it's true, I know it happened 2,000 years ago, so it's kind of
yeah, we have to use
you know.
the same tools we use for other ancient history and apply it to the Gospels. I'm saying if you do that and you don't do it arbitrarily and just say, hey, for these collection of documents, I'm going to be ridiculously skeptical and I'm just going to make like everything is going to be like laser focused. I'm going to take the negative on every single thing. Then you're going to just obliterate it. But I'm saying if you just take the same methodology that we do with everything else and just applied it to this, you could come away with saying, hey, it looks like these are written by eyewitnesses. These are early. These are in that time period. And these are from genuine people that really thought they saw Jesus alive, spent tons of money and a lot of time going about proclaiming it and writing these things down in a culture that did not like them, persecuted them. Some of them lost their life for it. It just goes against what we know about human psychology.
Okay. Well, could I ask you one question?
Sure.
One more? Okay. So, do you agree? Well, I guess it's a two-parter. I'm sorry. But do you agree that, like, Jesus wants as many people to be saved as possible?
Sure. I know that's just me guessing, but I imagine. Yeah.
So, what would be one thing you would tell an atheist, maybe use me as, like, you know, the whatever. What would be one thing you would say that would give the most probable chance of them possibly converting? I know that's a really tough question.
Put down your pride.
Put down your pride.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I guess I've thought of that before. Like, am I a prideful person for being atheist? And I guess for me, I kind of think like thinking that I am part of a group that Jesus loves, the most important person in the universe, who will eventually bring me to heaven where I can rule as a king over over all the other people. Kind of sounds pretty unhumble. That's what he says, or that's what Paul says about Christianity, is that that's who's going to be resurrected to heaven.
We're going to be kings over other Christians.
Kings and priests over all the inhabited earth.
Creation. Yeah, right. It's a little different than what you said.
Okay, I apologize. I was trying to get it. But that sounds pretty unhumble to me, a little bit, whereas a lowly atheist like me, he just thinks that I'm going to die and go back into the earth, and that's about it,
Sure.
Would you kind of agree with that, or?
No, I'm saying humble in the fact that, for me, if you're just asking me personally, I would say put down, when I said, hey, I'm just going to look at this as rationally as possible and just go where the evidence goes. I did not want to do that, but I did. And I'm saying because I did that, I ended up becoming a theist and then I became a Christian because I was just like, someone told me one time, just follow the evidence. And I don't even know if they were even Christian. And I was like, that's a good point. Let's just do that. And then someone said, treat the New Testament like you would anything else. And I was like, that's an interesting idea. I never thought about it. And I just did that and I became a Christian. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and obviously you
appreciate
might disagree
talking
with me, but yeah, thanks for coming up, man.
yeah, no problem. Have a good night, man.
You too. Well, I got nobody in the queue and it's kind of late and I think I've got 5 people watching. So I'm probably going to call it a night. You guys have a good night.